City Commission. Today is Thursday, June 8th, 2023. The time is 5:30 p.m. This meeting will be continued until all items are complete. Mayor, if you can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll follow that by a moment of silence to honor our veterans, members of the armed forces, and first responders.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, while we're getting settled, if everybody could take a minute to look at their cell phones, make sure it's on silent, vibrate, or turned off, please. And Mayor, you have some proclamations and awards.
Yes. We have some awards tonight, but they're for our life-saving lifeguards here in Flagler Beach, but Tom is completing some new hires tonight, and our lifeguards are a little busy, so we're going to push that for next week, or the next meeting, because we really want to be able to give some recognition on that amazing rescue that the guards had a couple weeks ago. And then we have a proclamation declaring Pride Month. So for those who would like to come forward, I know we have Aaron and we have the rest. Okay. Yeah, you can sit down. We have a proclamation declaring June 2023 as Pride Month. Whereas 236 years ago, our founding fathers wrote the United States Constitution, whose preamble states, "We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." And although the United States of America has made considerable progress toward a more perfect union, this progress has not come all at once, and our country still strives to establish justice, welfare, liberty, and tranquility for all. And whereas the city of Flagler Beach cherishes the value and dignity of each person and appreciates the importance of equality and freedom. And whereas on March 31st, 2022, President Joe Biden proclaimed March 31st Transgender Day of Visibility. And whereas LGBTQ and Pride Month begin on the 1 anniversary of June 1969 Stonewall Uprising in New York City after LGBTQ and allied friends rose up and fought against the constant police harassment and discriminatory laws that have since been declared unconstitutional, transforming the gay liberation movement and the 20th century fight for the LGBTQ rights in the United States. Whereas the city of Flagler Beach continues to support all LGBTQ people regardless of their various intersexuality, their gender identity, sexuality, race, class, disability, nationality, and location. Whereas it is with the most profound regard that we recognize the struggles of our neighbors, family members, friends, and of all past and present peoples of Flagler Beach who have suffered, fought, and died for loving whom they love. Particularly, we remember the victims of anti-LGBTQ violence in Florida, including the 49 lives taken on June 12, 2016 at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, the deadliest mass shooting in the United States at the time. Now, therefore, I, Susie Johnston, under the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Flagler Beach, Florida, do hereby declare June 2023 as LGBTQ Pride Month in the city of Flagler Beach. Thank you. Do you want to say anything?
Kind of emotional right now because in the 20 years that I've been a resident of Flagler Beach, to see something like this happen is a big deal. Diversity and inclusion is huge. And I just want to thank you so much for making sure that we feel welcomed and safe here in Flagler Beach. And I couldn't be happier. So thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. I got something. All right,
And Mayor, that's everything for you, right? Okay. I'll move on to deletions and changes to the agenda. Item 15 is being pulled per Penny and the city manager. And do we have any other deletions or changes to the agenda? All right, so we're good there. All right, so I'll open this up public comments. This is items that are not on the agenda. Citizens are encouraged to speak. However, comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Please address them to me. And anyone wishing to speak under public comment, please come on up. If you can, please start with your name and address for the record.
I'm Sally Arnoff in Sugar Mill, and just have a curiosity question. It may have been discussed before at a meeting when I didn't catch it, so I apologize if it's redundant. Has it been determined with the hotel that is going in what reference point will be used to measure the height? Thank you.
All right, and then we'll do all the responses right at the end of public comment. Thank you, Sally. Anyone else for public comment? Come on up, please. State your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Carol Katsolis. I live at 2099 Joyce Street, and I live in the neighborhood as being blessed with the beautiful car wash that's being put in. And recently they were issued a boil alert for the water because they were doing some work up there. And I want to comment because I never received, well, I think I received a notice that to do that, but I got it mixed in with other papers that came that same day to the front door. So I do know I didn't get a boil alert to my knowledge then. My neighbor mentioned it and I was like, oh, but there's a boil water alert? I didn't know that. So anyway, I followed with a phone call to the water plant and I was notified when the alert was over. But I don't think putting a sleeve with this note in it on a doorknob works, because I know I have a neighbor she found it in her lawn as she was mowing the lawn, and another person, they don't use their front doors. I have a neighbor who's ill and she didn't get the notice because she doesn't go to the front door. She's on oxygen. And so I think there has to be a better way to notify citizens, residents, when something like this happens, whether there could be a recorded message to people's phones. This was affected 5 blocks. And I just think there has to be a better way to do this.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Any other public comments? Come on up. Ken, please state your name and address for the record.
Erica Rivera, 209 South 15th Street, Apartment 1. I should have mentioned earlier, Pulse Vigil is still on for Sunday, 6 to 8 p.m. at Veterans Park. And happy to have you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Anyone else for public comment? All right, seeing no one, we'll close public comment. All right, so first thing we have is the reference point being used for the height of the hotel. I don't have that information in front of me. However, that was discussed in great detail in PAR Board Commission and
Yeah, it would have been part of the review of the plans, and Larry's the best. I don't know if, Lee, do you happen to know that off the top of your head on the height? Lee,
But
my assumption is it's grade, but that is an assumption, not having looked at it recently.
Right, I guess so. A request would be Penny, is there a way we could email that information to Sally? Because it's basically a public records request anyways. Okay, so Sally, we're going to get that information to you. Because that has been discussed numerous times in meetings. We just don't have it in front of us right now. Okay, so communication around boil water notices. I guess city manager, I'll give you first shot at that. Is there calls that go out, or is it only the paper notifications?
I believe it's just the notifications go out. There
Is your mic on?
I'm sorry. There is a process that can be used, 311 or 411, depending on what they call it for the phone system. I don't know if our commercial phone system will allow those kind of segmented phone calls that are automatically put on auto dial and go out to a certain neighborhood. I have to check. I can check on that during our next staff meeting and see if that is even a possibility, but it's based upon the commercial phone company and what their capabilities are. But I don't know if we have that capability.
Commissioner Mealy?
Yeah, we have, you can sign up for emergency notices through the county, but those notices go out to everybody, and
Yeah.
I don't think that can be
It has to be,
segmented into a particular
it has to be
neighborhood.
broken down where you can do it by geographical area, and I don't know that we've got the capability of doing that.
I have a question or
Mayor?
suggestion. We have where you can sign up for the city text alerts for meetings, and maybe we could, in addition to setting up for special meetings and meetings, we could also put out boil water alerts through that service as well.
There are safety alerts they could sign up through
Okay.
through the Notify Me process. In regards to phone calls to residents, that would depend on if they have provided a phone number to the utility department. So many people now do not use a landline and have a cell phone.
So Ms. Katstolis, if you go onto the city website, there's a section called Notify Me that you can look up, and it has the text notification through there.
But that would be the only way that it's done? You'd have to just keep checking the,
It will text you.
oh, it will text me.
So, well, the first thing that we would need to do is, as a group, we would have to decide, do we want that boil water notice being pushed out through that process? Because it's currently not being done now. Is there an appetite for that?
I think so.
City manager, do you have something?
The only caution I would say is that unless you have a way of segmenting the area that is contacted, you can lead to more confusion and more upset individuals, because if it goes out where the boil water, if you can't segment it by zones, and that really is up to your commercial carrier and how well you can work with that 411 system, you'd create more problems than what you'd solve, I believe.
City attorney?
I was going to say, maybe let staff stew on it for a couple of weeks and bring back their ideas at the next meeting, rather than kind of flying from the hip tonight,
good
and give Mike
suggestion.
some time to look at it.
Okay, you want to just bring that back?
So we'll look at it.
All right, then we got Pulse at 6 p.m. Sunday. Gotcha. All right. So that wraps up public comments. We will move on to consent agenda. Consent agenda, we have item 6, approve meeting minutes, May 25th, 2023. 7 is review memorandum of understanding Flagler Strong disaster recovery hours. Approve contract for disaster debris services between City of Flagler Beach. Number 9, review existing disaster services contract for disaster debris hauling. 10 is review existing contract for disaster financial consulting. And 11 is review contract for remediation services. Anybody want to pull any numbers or have discussion?
No, I'm glad we're preparing for the hurricane we're not going to have.
I like that. I like that. I would like to pull 10 if we could. Any other comments or items they'd like to pull? All right, so then I would look for discussion or motion before we open up public comment for 6, 7, 8, 9, 11.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, all except for 10.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we'll open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on consent agenda items 6, 7, 8, 9, or 11? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Item 10, this is just so we can, for the record, just explain what this exactly is. Penny, this one has your name on it. So disaster service contract for disaster financial consulting services. Can you just, for the record, kind of take us through exactly what that service provides and what they do?
Sure. So Flagler Beach being a small staff with a lot of responsibilities, much of the work we do during a declared disaster is reimbursable through FEMA or the State Department of Emergency Management Services. So they assist us so staff can continue to do their daily work, and they assist us with getting those claims together and having them where they won't be audited or rejected by FEMA. So we can get reimbursed, basically.
All right, thank you.
We get reimbursed for their services as well.
For their services as well, depending on how the declaration is done. In the past, we've seen where they're pretty much almost 100% reimbursable on some services, but generally it's 75% by the state or FEMA, and then the county usually kicks in another 12.5%, and the city's responsible for 12.5%.
Any other discussion for item 10? All right, we'll open this up public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on item 10 of the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment.
I'd just like to comment, before we use the services of this group, we often had to repeat the same information over and over and over again because people would say we didn't get it, or you didn't fill it out right, or blah, blah, blah. And then I think last year was the first year that we used this service, and things went a whole lot better.
Well, we use CDR McGuire for Matthew.
Right.
And Burma maybe, but yeah, so.
Yeah, he just left from Matthew and got called back for Irma.
For Irma, yeah.
Yeah, so he was here almost the whole year.
Well, we still have public comment going.
Sorry.
Tracy, we saw you're here from Flagler Strong. Did you have anything you wanted to add, even though we already closed 7 for Flagler Strong? Okay, you're good. You were rather quiet, so we.
I do have, while we're on the subject, the county does cooperative requests for proposals that all the municipalities within the county can utilize for disaster services. Generally, a piggyback contract is not reimbursable by FEMA, but since it's done in this cooperative, the bids or proposals are turned in knowing that any of the cities in the county may contract with them. It becomes reimbursable that way. But I do have a couple of other groups for disaster financial contract, debris monitoring, and I also have a hazardous tree removal. So they're the ones who come and cut people who cut the hanging limbs, and then debris picks it up behind them, and the monitors watch them and make sure their numbers are correct. So I can add those on. We can have multiple contracts. I did that with one of the haulers here, just in the event that a storm maybe cuts across the state and damages worse somewhere else. They might send us stragglers, which they've done in the past. So it just provides us better backup.
But we start with Crowder Gulf, and then if Crowder Gulf
We can start with whichever one we like. We're in contract with them. But I might be bringing back a couple other contracts just for duplication.
Okay.
All right, any other discussion around item 10?
Motion to approve item 10 of the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
The motion and second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. All right, we'll move on to general business. Update on the wastewater treatment facility construction. Johnny and Ben Fries. Ben, did you bring the energy?
Johnny's up first.
All right, Johnny.
I told Mike yesterday that Ben was going to make it taste like candy.
I sit there and I watch you guys when I'm not here, and I'm doing stuff at the screen like I should be there. I can make a comment. But I'm here tonight. So
There's a lot of people that do that.
I'm not going there. Okay, so I've got a laundry list of stuff here. I've got probably 4 hours to go through no, I'm just kidding. So let's start with the screw press. So I've been working with DEP over the last 5-6 weeks. We got all of our last issues resolved with that, and they're going to go ahead and bless our project and give us the clear light to go next week. Once we do that, I'll be looking to turn the screw press around as quickly as possible, so I'll probably be here at the next commission meeting to get that part moving. Contractor's ready to go. He's just waiting on that approval, and I'm hoping to have it by next Thursday. That's the latest. Once we get that, it's clear sailing. We're ready to roll. Wastewater plant. So we're moving pretty well on that. This sort of ties into the project I'm doing in Wildwood, because the contractor building this one that we selected is the same one in Wildwood. And Wildwood has never done a CMAR contract. So I've been hoping they were going to get ahead of us, because they're having to work through terms and conditions in the contract with them, but they've never done a CMAR before. So having talked to Drew, I'm like, okay, well, their city attorney in Wildwood hasn't done any type of CMAR before, so I'm going to hook that city attorney up with Drew. If we get the terms and conditions done there, we'll use the same terms and conditions here because it's the same contractor, and we should be able to slide through real quick. Theirs is a little bit more complex as far as what we're building, but terms and conditions should be the same in the contract. So I think we can expedite that also. So I'm going to give Drew some contact information to them, and Drew will be our lead to help get all those terms and conditions right, so we can slide through pretty quick. The contractor has been out to the site a couple of times. They've met with Johnny to look at the lay of the land, see what we're going to be building, see what issues that they may have or may not have. They'll actually be out there tomorrow. We originally had done a 3D survey, so every point on that site, whether it's the crest of a building or the top of a wall or a handrail, they have the elevations for all of that. They're going to start to set a little bit of control tomorrow. We're going to let them get a little bit ahead, because once we get the contract done, they're ready to move fast. They've got their crews are looking to be on site digging probably early fall. We got to get through value engineering and a GMP and that kind of stuff. It'll take a couple of months once we get them rolling, but they're ready to hit the ground moving. The crews will be here and are available early fall. I'm going to say September. I'm hoping that'll work. But we'll see how it goes. But they're ready to move, so that's good news on that end. Grants. So we were here about a month ago with a grant that we got from the state that Lee and I had worked on for $4.5 million. I think, Lee, that paperwork's been sent to the state.
Just got it today, signed.
Okay, so we just got it today signed, so that's a good thing. So there's the $4.5 million. About half of that is for 4 lift stations that we're rehabbing, and the other half is for work at the wastewater plant, which ties into what we're doing. We want to get moving on that quickly. I got 2 other grants from the same group in this recent grant program. They asked me how quickly I can spend the money. That never happens. Once they get their hot hands on the money, they want to get it out of their hands as quickly as possible. So we're going to move as quick as we can to get that money spent and get these projects done. So Lee and I will probably be looking to come to you here real soon with these projects to get them moving. The quicker we get them moving, the quicker we get the money from them out the door, and those projects are ready to go and can be constructed.
Then, before you continue,
sure.
The $4.5 million, I asked this question at the last meeting. That's part of the state budget, correct?
Yes.
And the governor hasn't signed the budget yet. They can move ahead?
No, they can't. This was part of last year's budget.
Last year's budget.
Yep.
Got it.
He hasn't signed this year's budget, which will start. He's got till the end of this month to sign it, and that'll be up for the next fiscal year.
Okay, but the 4.5 comes out of last year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so we want to spend the money as quick as we can and get these things moving. So I think we're good there. As far as grants, let's talk about that for a few minutes. One of the next grants coming up will be towards the end of the year for the treatment plant, and that's a St. Johns River Water Management District grant. They have money every year. Typically, you have to apply in January of that year, and they usually have $60-70 million, and they look at the projects, and then they start to dole out based on what they think is going to give them the best bang for their buck. So I want to be able to take part of the reclaim stuff we're doing, because typically they're going to do anything reclaimed, that's what they're going to fund. It's reclaimed and springs. We don't have springs, so we're going to have to go for reclaimed. We need a reclaimed ground storage tank to be able to put reclaimed in to be able to pump it out to where we're going to go. So I want to strategize with Johnny and Mike and Edgar. So we got a strategy so we get a really high score. Then in the fall, meet with St. John's, not just give them an application, meet with them, go through the project, so when they're ready to start scoring in January, they've already seen our project, they know all about it. That helps us get the money usually. The max you can get is $3 million in any 1 year. It's a 50-50 match. So if they gave us $2 million, we'd have to kick in $1 million. There's a $3 million project. We've got to start getting as much money as we can from the state and from the Water Management District and DEP to fund this infrastructure to get out of the intercoastal, and this is one of the things that we've got to do. You can get money every year. Lee's been getting a lot of money from Water Management District for all the slip lining stuff that we're doing. This is just another pool for reclaimed. And again, we've got a good story because we're starting from zero. So there's a lot that I think we'll be able to get over time. But now's the time to seize that because, you know, we got to get moving. 2032 sounds like it's a long way away, but to build the infrastructure and get it in place, get it all designed, takes a while. So I want to make sure we're on that list. We'll be working through the summer and the fall to put that together. I'll probably do a presentation to say, here's what the game plan is, get your blessing on that, and then that'll allow us then to go in the fall and early next year to try to get money for it. And you can do that every year. And we've been getting slip lining money. We can get reclaim money the same way. We are also in for an FDEP Alternative Water Quality Grant. We had applied for that originally from DEP this year. They kicked it from their typical reclaimed to an alternative water supply grant. So we're still in that pool of money. I think we have a good capability to get that money. That won't be until the fall where they make the decision on that. Right now we have another $4.5 million sitting in a pot. Hopefully we'll get that money. I'm working with Edgar to try to work our magic to try to get there. We'll see how that goes, but that's probably in the early fall that they'll make decisions on the alternative water quality supply. So $4.5 million there. We'll shoot for $3 million for St. John's, and then again we're looking for any pot of money we can grab from. There's a lot of pots right now, and we just have to strategically look for those pots and then do a good job of wordsmithing what we're trying to do. That's half of the battle sometimes. So I think there's a really good potential to continue to get more money to help us to get the infrastructure we need. It's tough when you start from nothing. It's easy once you have something to expand. Next thing on my list, which is the next topic here, is the reuse master plan. The reuse master plan is required for us to get any funding beyond what we already have applied for. Edgar needs that to be able to take that to representatives in Tallahassee to say, all right, this is what we're going to do in Flagler Beach with getting rid of this effluent, trying to get out of the intercoastal. Nobody will tell you they can give you money unless you have a plan. And here's the projects. It's phased over this many years. Here's what we're looking to do. Here's the cost. If you don't have a plan, you're not getting money. So that's the idea behind getting the master plan done. So when he goes in to talk to representatives or Mr. Renner or whoever it is, he can say, all right, here's our plan. It's in writing. Here's what we're looking for priority-wise in 2023, 24, 24, 25, blah, 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 and see if we can get appropriations, grants, what have you, from all the pools of money out there. But we've got to have that plan, and that's why it's such a critical document we got to get generated, because it is the key to get us future monies. Let's see. Last thing I have on my list is an update, other than answering any questions you may have, the operations building. So we're about 65% complete with the operations building. It will be the first thing that the contractor starts to build at the new wastewater plant. I think in about 30 days I'll have a 75 or 80% complete set of drawings and specifications to get to Rick. I want Rick's comments early in the process so that when we get to 100% design, we're not going through Rick. I want it done early. It's to the point where he can look at it now. The key behind that building is there's no controls at the existing wastewater plant. Pretty much everything's manual. The new plant will be much fully automated, and you have to land all that automation in one spot. That's why we have to get the building built, because there'll be probably 100 conduit coming up through the floor in a room for the controls. So we got to get that building done and started and a slab ready to be poured to get all that conduit in there. That's the reason we have to get that done first. That's moving along. I'm happy where that is at. We've had some meetings. We've made a couple of modifications to that building. I think it's in pretty good shape. It meets all ADA requirements. It's very maintenance-free. It's a split-face block building with tinted blocks, so you never have to paint it. There's no maintenance. Every 15 years, you put some waterproofing on the outside. If you need to clean it for some mildew, pressure wash it, no painting. I put those in for 30 years, and we've not had to paint anything. It's the greatest thing in the world. But we're moving along on that. I'm happy where that's at. And again, got to get that done and moving, because that's what the contractor will start on first. And with that, I'll answer any questions, or Johnny can.
Johnny, did you have anything first before we?
No, we've already went over it.
All right, questions or discussion?
I got a list.
Do you want to go first?
Okay.
I'll go after you.
That doesn't matter.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bellumer.
All right, the screw press.
Yep.
What's the real timeline on that now?
Once we get a purchase order to the manufacturer, I can get it in 18 weeks. Power's already there. It's going to be installed on a slab with a metal building around it with just skin on 3 sides. So that would go up pretty quick. That'll probably be up before the screw press ever gets here. So nothing's going to hold us up. I've got my spot held in the queue with the manufacturer since I've worked with them so much. So we should be able to get it really quick. I'm happy with where I wish we were done, but I'm happy that he's held my spot.
Yeah, I thought we were real close 2 years ago, but.
I was too.
Okay, so they won't be in the way of anything else going on when they're working on that, but that's that'll be done quickly anyway, right?
Yes, and actually the contractor that was selected for the CMAR to build the treatment plant, PC Construction, it's PC Construction / Sawcross. Sawcross is actually building the screw press. So the same contractor's doing all the work. So there'll be no bumping of crews whatsoever. So that's in our favor.
And the drying beds won't be in the way of any new construction? Is
No.
anything being built where any drying beds are now?
No, the 4 big drying beds won't be impacted. The 3 smaller drying beds are going to be decommissioned at the end of the project. So there's a process you have to go. You have to take out like 13 to 14 feet of soil because it's been receiving all that stuff for the last however many years. But that won't happen till the end. Nothing is going to cause us to have any issues with construction.
Next question, how many of these lift stations do we expect we'll be able to take care of with this grant money from the state?
Right now, Lee and I put in for 4. We're doing 4 right now, and the new grant that we just got is another 4 lift stations. So together that'll make 8. Lee, do you have any other thing you want to comment on there?
We're also doing 20 manhole lifting covers and rings.
In addition, 20 manhole covers and rings that they're working on right now also.
Okay. So that'll help with the water intrusion?
Yes, sir.
So St. John's, we put in for a grant this year for what, slip lining that we didn't get. So this money you're speaking of is a different bucket of money for
Yeah, you'll be able to apply.
use?
Yes, sir. You'll be able to apply for both the slip lining and this.
Okay, that's good news. The reuse master plan, what's going to be our process for that?
Okay, Okay, so we're gonna stage the master plan. I'm looking at three phases to it. The low-hanging fruit has to happen first. We don't have a lot of money, so where can I park the water as quickly as possible close to the treatment plant? Because the further we get away, that's more piping, more right-of-way, all that kind of wonderful stuff. My thought is, and Johnny, close your ears, I want to irrigate as much as we can on the treatment plant site. You're gonna have to cut a lot of grass, but there's a lot of room there to get rid of water. Wadsworth Park is really close to the treatment plant, so we need to start talking to the county about being able to water all the ball fields there. That's an easy place to get rid of water. Then we need to work on other issues. I think we ought to, because there's a different pot of money for this, I think we need to try to work a strategy, and the previous city manager had made some contacts with Palm Coast and Bunnell and the county to do some regional stuff. We all have the same problems. What do you do with the water when people aren't irrigating because it's raining? You know, so if we have a regional solution for a part of our issue, that's a whole different pot of money, and you have a better chance of getting that money because you're solving 4 problems, not 1. And I think they'll be interested in that because they have the same issues we do. Palm Coast has a lot more users, and if we can figure out maybe a place to park the water, a reservoir that everybody can put in the water and pull it out, then 4 people can help build that infrastructure, not the city of Flagler Beach building their own. I think that's something we need to think about.
You know where you can do that?
Pardon me?
The county owns a massive swath of land right across the street just north of it. And it could go right in there.
In Central Florida, I've done that with the city of Sanford, Volusia County, Seminole County, and Lake Merritt. We did a 4-way project that they all put money into, and the state helped to fund, because it's easier for them to put a pot of money out there to help a project when it solves 4 issues, not just one person's issue. So I think there's an advantage of that. We just need to work the politics of getting the right people to talk and work that plan out. So, and I know the previous city manager had discussions with Palm Coast and the county. I don't know what happened, but I think we need to start to think about that, because that could help us develop a quick plan if everybody is putting money into the pot to solve a problem.
City manager, do you have thoughts on getting that conversation started? Or I guess, Ben, what kind of time frame? Is this a discussion that has to happen soon? Or should we wait until the new city manager is in place?
This reuse master plan I want done by the end of the year, because I want to use it for the St. John's Water Management District, and Edgar will use it starting in January to get monies. So we need to start to think if they're even interested in it, probably in the next couple of months. So the discussions need to start as soon as possible to know whether that's a pathway we can use or not.
And I think that some limited discussions at this point that I've had, I think there's a degree of favorability towards a cooperative agreement, and so I can continue those discussions to make it more firm and try to identify exactly how it would transpire. I think now's the time to continue, and I can do that.
That particular piece of land, if that was to become, say, a reservoir, as you spoke about, that is very strategic, because that is bordering Palm Coast. It's bordering county. It is in a spot where everybody could get to it without having to go far out of their way. So it has high potential. Spoken from a layman, but
well, glad you had it all figured out.
No, and those are the things we need. What strategies can we use? Because we got to pull a lot of water out of the intercoastal. If we can sell it to Palm Coast because they need it, that's a lot easier than us trying to figure out how to get to the golf course, and it costs tens of millions of dollars. Any assistance that we need with that, let me know, because we're also the engineers for Bunnell and Palm Coast, so I know all their infrastructure. So I can help with that if you need that.
So, Commissioners, Mayor, do we have thoughts or a consensus on city manager pursuing that discussion?
I'm for it.
Yeah, Ben's telling us that we're not going to be able to get any more money until
Plan.
such things
Need a
done.
plan.
So time's of the essence. And yeah, I had the same thing written down here, all that county land between Flagler Beach and Old Kings Road. There's all kinds of a vast expanse of land that could be,
Yes, sir.
water could be distributed on somehow.
Yeah, and Palm Coast has a reclaim lane right down the street on the other side of the bridge. So if we put it in a reservoir, they could pump it back up towards their area, and it could go right over to Bunnell, and we could get Bunnell connected, because Bunnell's not that far from that point. So I think the more people we can tie into it, the better shot we got at getting money, because again, regional solutions are much more palatable to the state than singular ones.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a consensus on that. Commissioner Sherman, you were next.
I just had a quick question. Has the city staff identified locations further south of the plant on John Anderson, such as Sugar Mill Plantation?
Yes, sir.
Veranda Bay, so we've already made contact with all those?
We haven't made contact. I've identified areas that I think we need to be thinking about.
Okay.
And once we get this started, then I want to go ahead and get with Mike to be able to see who we need to talk to get those commitments. I'll give you an example. There's a lot of unused property out there that could be developed in the future. It's just sitting there. Well, I've done plants up in the Northeast. When we have to get rid of effluent, we irrigate the woods. Why can't we irrigate those properties? The pipe would be there, so if a developer says, okay, now I'm going to put this development in, the pipe's already there. We're irrigating his woods. It's a way to get out of the intercoastal and gets the pipe to where it needs to be in the future. That's low-hanging fruit anywhere down John Anderson or the Wadsworth Park or this reservoir we're talking about. Those are the things we need to think about. The best place for me to park water is the golf course. It's just too far away. I have to go all the way to the end of John Anderson, then I have to tunnel under the intercoastal and come up to the golf course. That would be the nice thing to do, but it's the pricey thing to do. We need to stay close to home, the plant.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
No other questions or comments? The only other thing that I had is, so can you just give us an overall, where do we stand on the previous presented timeline? So you had a timeline all worked out. Are we still on track? Is it behind? And if so, by how much?
Okay, so if we can assume that the contractor is ready to go in the fall, there's going to be two contracts you will see. The first one that I'm hoping you're going to see, not next commission meeting, but the one after that, is for what's called pre-construction services. Because we have to get them involved in, let's look at value engineering, and if you had to bill what's on here right now, here would be the price. And then gauge, is that too high? Do we have to reduce the cost? Are we going to have to phase it? We need to know that number so we can bring it to you. If we were happy with the number, and we presented it to you, then once you say, yes, we'll accept that contract at this guaranteed maximum price, they're going to be ready to start digging a hole in the ground and doing all the work. I would assume right now, and they're going to put their schedule together. That's the schedule we want to see. I would assume it's going to take 24 months to build the plant only because of supply chain right now on some of the stuff. I want to order equipment as soon as possible, meaning we're going to try to owner direct purchase as much equipment as we can so we don't pay sales tax. That's 6%, 6.5%, whatever it is. That's a lot of money. We need every dime we can get. So I want to start that process. The impact item on this entire treatment plant is electrical gear. For instance, I can get the screw press in 18 weeks. To get the electrical gear to power the new plant is 72 weeks. 72 weeks. And I can't tell you if something happens next month or 2 months from now that's going to slow down. You know, with all this money that the feds are throwing at stuff and the state, everybody's doing construction, so these guys are working 24 hours a day to manufacture stuff. They just can't manufacture it fast enough. So that's the critical item. I want equipment on the site. I want it on the ground. I want it in a building waiting on the electrical. I don't want to hold the contractor up. The more equipment I can get on site early, the faster he gets done. And if I have to wait for the electrical gear, I'm okay with that. Because once it's there and they power up, we're gone. We're ready to go. So that's, Eric, that's the unknown for me right now is the year. They will give us a construction schedule once we decide what we're going to build. I think they can do it in 24 months from start. I just can't tell you I can guarantee that because I don't know the supply chain problems that could come up. But that's my guess right now.
Right, okay. But we can expedite our end of it, which is deciding on the plan and getting that buttoned
Yes, sir.
up.
Yes, sir. No, without a doubt, yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion point? This is not actionable, but I would like to open it up for public comment, just because this is a big item for the city. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? Come on up, Daryl. If you can, please state your name and address for the record.
It's Daryl Reynolds, 322 North 11th Street. Can we get him to get us the backflow valves for the stormwater? Because it seems like he got a plan.
Ben does have a plan. Ben's got a good plan.
Well, I mean, it appears that those are still not in the budget, right? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Daryl. I wonder if Ben could get us them, for the next round. Ben, you should look into that.
I got a plan. Just tell me what you want me to do.
Yep, we have this particular round is already secured and buttoned up, but potentially for the next round. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. All right, no action needed on this unless there's any other discussion. All right, we will move on to item 13, approve the reuse master plan proposal submitted by engineering firm Conklin Porter Homes so they can generate a plan which will be used to ask for funding from state legislative appropriations, state grants, low interest loans, or project utility bonds. Johnny or Ben, which one?
Oh, it's all you, man. You wrote that.
All right, Johnny, you're up now.
Hi, this is Johnny Lynn, the wastewater
Do you have as good a plan as he does?
I hope so. I hope so. This is basically just giving CPH permission to move forward with y'all's blessing to move forward with the reuse master plan that they actually submitted back in, was it October 2021? This will get the ball rolling. So we're about a year and a half behind already. I guess it's about 8.5 more years to get out the intercoastal. So that is basically what it is, just giving them approval to move forward.
Just to piggyback off what you were saying, Ben, when you were talking about you can't ask for money unless you have a plan, right. This item 13 is that plan.
That's the plan. Right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure everybody understands that in the public and all. Yeah. And no money can be had unless you have a plan on what to do.
Right.
And so that would be the approval of what this is.
Right.
Okay. All right. And questions or comments?
Yeah, I don't remember if it was Rick who said, but if you look at the last page, at the very top, number 3, it says analyze and include neighborhoods, planned subdivisions, and other sites that have reclaimed water dry lines included or installed, or that may be planned. I think that addresses something. I think it was Rick brought it up before about looking down John Anderson, right. Or, some other places. So I think that addresses that.
Right.
Yes. Any other discussion or comments on this? All right, thank you, Johnny.
All right.
I'll open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? Johnny, you got off easy on this one.
Done 13.
That's because he did a good job.
All right, I'll see you now. We'll close public comment and look for a motion.
Motion. Go ahead. Motion to approve the reuse master plan submitted by Conklin Porter and Homes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. All right, item 14, discussion and direction to staff regarding the Ronan's shed. City Attorney.
Under my name because I asked for it, but Penny, I think you can express the question more clearly of what you're looking for. Really, so when this came before, it came before you on a variance request. You denied the variance, but said that we'd pay to relocate the shed. And then the Ronans and city staff engaged in those conversations. And I think they need some further direction from the commission on when you say pay to relocate the shed, how far is the commission willing to go? Because I think the issue has been there's relocation of shed, and then there's other expenses related to relocation of the shed, and what does the city want to invest? And I think the Ronins also want an answer to the question, because I think there was a door left cracked that if it proved too complicated or too expensive, then you might reconsider the variance. And I think the Ronins would prefer that you reconsider the variance. So I think those are the two sides, but I think we're both looking for direction from the commission. What way do you want us to go on this? Do you want us to nail down a relocation, or do you want to see a variance again? And then Penny, you can add the background you have on it.
That's basically, so.
Do I have to sign another one of those forms?
If you're not going to vote.
I'm not going to vote.
Attorney Smith, are you okay with that?
With her signing, yes.
Okay. All right, so we have,
and just while you're filling out the forms, you can go ahead and disclose what the voting conflict is.
I live across the street, and the property could.
Property value could be impacted.
Yep.
okay. Commissioner Bellinger, you had a question before you begin?
Going through the variance process be any different than it was before? You got the same criteria. Why would it be any different?
Well, that's going to be the first order of business we really probably should address before we even get into anything else. So
you're not considering the variance, you're not considering the criteria tonight, but all I can tell you at this point is that door was left open at the last commission meeting, that it was possible that given the development of those conversations, that there might be facts that some of you might consider to change your mind on how you evaluated those criteria.
Right. So we have, does the body want to reconsider the variance as a question? So let's have some discussion on this first.
I can comment, right?
Yes.
You can comment, you can't vote.
I'm with Rick that we didn't accept the variance criteria the last time. Why would we? Nothing's changed. It's in the same place it was.
Yeah, it's the same criteria.
Why would we?
So,
Okay. Any other
I don't see any
thoughts or questions on it?
Do you guys mind if I approach here?
Yes, once we get there.
So you're not answering questions, because I'm sure that the Ronins would like to have some input before you make up your mind on that question. So you're just kind of getting.
I just want to get the discussion wrapped up, and then we're going to talk to the applicant. Any other thoughts? All right. Well, you're already there. You're reading our mind. Come on up. I'd like to hear from the applicant on this part of the discussion.
Thanks. I'm Jeff Ronan, 212 Limerick. So for me, this has been very complicated. I know there's some new members of the commission up here. Maybe some of them aren't as educated as the prior ones that have been involved in all this. I'd like to start, though, by just simply stating respectfully, if Jane Mealy is recused, why do you get an opportunity to influence the commission?
State law authorizes it.
It's a state law. Okay. All right. Because to me, it feels like it would compromise her ability to be impartial.
Understood, but state law allows it.
Okay. All right. So backtracking here a little bit, the Planning and Review Board unanimously recommended a variance, in case anybody was not aware of that. When we went through the variance process, we did all the right things. The Planning and Review Board reviewed all of the conditions of the variance and agreed to recommend. When we came here, it was overturned or not recommended here. So I want to throw that out there for some of the new folks that are sitting up here that weren't part of that process and maybe are not aware of that. The rest of it is exactly what you said. Like we're trying to figure out, how to progress this thing. It's been a year and a half. That thing's been there for a year and a half. And I can't even bring power out to it. My motorcycles are all dead because I can't bring power out to it and put trickle charges out there until we get this resolved. So we did have, I think Lee came out there and he looked at it and he had talked about a location. The location Lee had talked about was going to require a driveway relocation on my property. It is also, I didn't notice until after Lee left, it's right by a gate. I've got like a friendly neighbor gate that lets me cross over into my neighbor's yard. My neighbor Rob was a friend of mine. My new neighbors Tom and Lynn are friends, so I have a gate there. And where Lee was talking about putting it, and neither one of us saw the gate until it was done. Either way, it's not the, if I have to relocate it, I did drop a sketch and send it into the city and said, if I have to relocate it and follow the ordinance, I did send something to the city saying, here is where I would relocate it. But it is the same amount of work that was required the first time, right? the same conversations that I continue to have with the city about the city's swale feeding back into my yard and flooding my yard. I mean, particularly the north and southbound boundaries of my yard, which are the low points, which is the only place I could put this thing. So if I do move it, I have to elevate that entire section of my yard, the same elevation that I elevated where it sits right now, which is about 18 inches, and add drainage, which is exactly what I did with the same section right now. So, and I want to reiterate, and there's maybe a different position here. So I think initially all along we've talked about, well, the city gave me a permit, which they did. The city gave me a permit to put that building right where it is. I would not have spent $10,000 and then the added cost of the excavation to build that pad if I didn't have a permit. Ultimately, the city has decided that I didn't meet the ordinance and that I'm partially to blame because I should know the ordinance of Flagler Beach, which I do not. But beyond that, Larry Torino on multiple occasions has actually said, because I submitted incomplete documentation, I submitted a survey that's missing a boundary line, that his department never should have given me a permit. I never should have got that permit, but they did. I gave them incomplete documentation. It was missing a boundary line. I don't know anything about surveys. I know Larry got up here and said, oh, well, Jeff submitted 4 or 5 other ones with an entire survey. I never submitted one. It was contractors. This is the first one that I've submitted. I don't do this for a living. So in my mind, here's a survey. Here's my building. Tell me if I can put it there or not. The city asked me some questions. I answered them. They gave me a permit. And since that day, I've been fighting this battle. And if I have to move it, I truly don't believe I should have to pay for it. And that's what I'm here to talk about today.
Just a question, Mr. Rennan, I don't know if you know the answer to this, or if Lee, you might too, but has there been for the relocation to the area that you've proposed, if it were to be relocated, is there a cost number associated with that? Do you have an estimate?
I mean, if I thought about what I paid, I would say probably around 10K.
Just so they have a sense of what they're talking about.
It's probably around 10.
Okay, just to keep this structured, do we have any questions for the applicant while he's up here before we ask him to sit down? Mr. Spradley.
I have one, Mr. Ronan. Is there more than one possible location that would suit you? I know one of the things you're asking about is a location that would require rerouting your driveway, which I understand would probably be the largest cost, although we don't have any estimates before us. Are there locations that it could be moved from your point of view that do not involve rerouting your driveway?
The only place on my entire property would be right in the middle of my front yard. Any other place is going to require driveway relocation. The front left part of my property is the biggest open space that's not the middle of my yard, which is why I put it there in the first place. And it's still the biggest open space. It would have to rotate and come back towards my house a little bit, but it still fits in that space. But what the ramp would come out of the building would be right in the middle of my driveway. So the ramp would literally just be in the driveway. So the driveway would have to get relocated.
Okay, thank you.
And the same thing with a place that Lee had identified, driveway relocation, either way.
Any other questions for the applicant while he's up here? And you'll have a chance to respond too.
Okay.
We'll have some more discussion, and then we'll give you a chance to respond.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. All right, so we're still on this first piece of the discussion. So we have the reconsideration of the variance. And what discussion points do we have? Commissioner Spradley, did you have something?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is sort of a complicated situation. It has been from the beginning. And I sort of fit 2 categories that Mr. Ronan talked about. I was on the PAR board, which approved it the last time, and I'm one of the new members here, so I do know about it. But there was also some confusion when that PAR board meeting was had, and I'm not going to go into the details, but yes, the PAR board voted as it did. Yes, the commission, which I was not yet a member of, elected not to approve that variance. And I know, just in wearing my hat as a lawyer, when things get revisited, then usually there's something changed, a change in facts, the law, or something like that. So I would be kind of inclined, when it comes down to it, I would like to see if there was some change in what the lay of the land, so to speak, was when the variance was first applied for than now. And I haven't heard anything that suggests it is.
To help with that, I think where it was left when the variance was denied, and then there's some commentary after, some discussion and commentary after that, I think those voices that were leaving the door open were looking at because one of those criteria is hardship. And I think looking at this evaluation as it could, if there were no other locations to move it to, that might generate a hardship. And so I think that was the idea from up there. That's me interpreting, that's not me saying, that's me interpreting what I think I was hearing that night, was that this could change the math on the hardship question.
I understand. And then the only other comment I would make is that I would feel better making a decision one way or the other if we had an estimate, so we know exactly what we're talking about. Thank you.
Okay. Commentary or discussion around the reconsideration of the variance part of the discussion?
Could
Penny?
just like to say that our purchasing policy, which is how we would pay the Ronins if we were directed to by you for that amount, would require at least 2 quotes. It's below the threshold for a bid process, but over a regular purchase amount. From what he said.
Got it. And we'll end up, when we get to the next part of the discussion, that'll be part of it. Right.
Had was, do we have a cost estimate?
Got it. All right, so as a body, where do we stand on reconsideration of the variance? Are we for it or against it?
I think we might need to backtrack here a little bit here on the variance. I think we were put in a really difficult situation when it did come to us back in, was it February? It came to us. I mean, it was a very difficult situation. The PAR board did approve it, and then there was holes poked, right? That the criteria we had to identify that was brought to us that wasn't brought to the PAR board when that happened. The Ronins, they did go. We as a city approved those permits. Mr. Ronin wouldn't have put his shed in that location if the city didn't approve it. I think, we might, as a city, might have fumbled the ball a little bit here as well. My thoughts are, do we maybe reconsider and find maybe some common ground here to some sort of compromise? I know it seemed as though the neighbors that were maybe a little bit more boisterous on this matter tended to be, it was the eyesore and the concerns of, I don't know, maybe the rest of you guys might have had different opinions, but I thought it was that their concerns were, bringing down the property value of their home because of the location of the shed. To move it 12 feet, I believe is it 12 feet that it's 20 feet, 20, okay, so is really 25 feet going to change? I mean, are there are there shrubs or something we can put in there to take away that eyesore? I don't know. That's just my thoughts. I know there's criteria there, but at the same time, we as a city approve certain things, and I think that's been something that's kind of been at my core with this situation. I don't know what everybody else's appetite is on that matter.
But just to remind that the second point is why the commission that night did say that you would participate in the cost.
Yes, that's right. At 10K, I mean, just hypothetically, $10,000, is that something that we as a city should be, obligating ourselves to, and does that open up other matters such as this in the future that could come up?
Fact specific, one-off, it doesn't set precedent.
Okay.
Further discussion.
We're still talking about whether we want to see the variance go through the variance procedure again.
If the variance is reconsidered, then there's no point in having a discussion on financial.
Speaking of compromise, but I don't know what compromise can be done within variance procedures. There's no real compromise there. It's yes.
So there's not compromise within that there, but again, if the facts, to Scott's point, if the facts change or the facts change in any of your minds, then your evaluation of those criteria could change. And I think so it's not a matter of compromise within the criteria, it's a matter of how do the facts today line up with those criteria. And also, Chair, City Manager was whispering in my ear that Lee may be able to speak to you about alternative locations on the site if you're interested in hearing that.
Yeah, I have a comment about that, but I was waiting for us to get past this part of the discussion.
Yeah, I agree with Scott. I don't see that things have changed enough to go through that again. It's the same criteria, so I don't know why it would be different.
Is that what your position was?
I do want to ask a question of Drew, though. When you said that hardship would be...
It's one of the six or seven here, but one of the criteria, the first criteria is hardship.
And are you suggesting that the discovery that to find a suitable location would require moving the driveway and the cost with that, that is the hardship we're talking about?
I'm not saying anything is or is not a hardship. That's beyond what I'm allowed to do over here. But what I am saying is any one of you could make that finding.
I see.
So I'm projecting onto you guys what you might find, but I'm not saying that's right or wrong.
Okay, thank you.
All right, further discussion on reconsidering the variance, or do we have a motion, one way or another?
Is that what you're looking for, a motion?
We would have, yeah, I think that would be a motion, don't you, Drew?
So reconsider the variance?
Or whether we do or not.
Well, one way or another, I mean, you don't have to say, no, we're not going to reconsider. One way or another, I hope we'll have some motion at the end of the day, because I'd like to, for us and the Ronins to have some resolution so we can work towards a solution now, because we're kind of hung up on this one point. And so the issues as I see them are, yes, I think you're right. One of them is, do you want to see the variance again, hear the variance again? The other, if you don't, do you want to revisit the question of, okay, what is, you've agreed to participate financially, we never put a number on that. I think you're hearing some now, and do you want to start to narrow down to a number on what the city's financial participation wants to be?
Right, but there's no point in getting into that if the variance gets reconsidered. So we need to complete the first part of the discussion. Would that be accurate?
So I'll give you my read from this side of the dais. I don't hear support for reconsidering the variance at this point. So you might move into the money consideration and without putting the other to bed, but talk about the money and then see where the whole thing winds up. But I think you're at a point now where I'm not hearing a lot of buy-in to the reconsideration of a variance. So maybe without making a firm decision on that yet, maybe move into the financial participation conversation.
I like it. Let's talk financials. Although we don't have estimates.
Right.
So we would we would be talking about more of percentages and conceptual.
Or do we have to leave here today with a number?
Or not to exceed amount.
Yeah. Can we ask Mr. Rowan? Penny said we need 2 estimates.
Which is why I suggested not to exceed amount.
How do we know based on what? He said the last time.
Estimates might come in more than not to exceed amount.
Well,
That's what I mean. That's why I say not to exceed. If you're going to put any number, I think you have to do not to exceed.
Well, let's hear from the applicant on this part of the discussion first. So, Mr. Rowan, if you can come up, we're going to talk about the financials a little bit and, possibilities there, and we'd like to hear from you first.
What exactly are you looking for me to tell you?
Well, I just want to give you a chance to talk about it. If you had any data or anything you wanted to share with us.
As I said, I don't have a quote, and I am probably less qualified than Lee is to throw some numbers out there. I'm an engineer, but I'm not, a civil or a structural or anything like that. I'm building automation, so and when I say 10K, I'm just shooting from the hip, just based on what it cost me to do what I have right now, and I didn't have to move a driveway last time. I have no idea what this would cost. I don't know.
Did that 10K include the cost of your shed?
No, the shed was $10,000, but to electrical work. Oh, there's no electrical work. I haven't done any electrical. I'd like to do electrical, but I'm not going to do electrical until I get a permit.
So
that
you've
can
spent
get passed.
10,000 on just bringing up the dirt in that section of your.
Well, no, I didn't spend 10,000. I did a lot of work to my yard, including that corner, but also backfilling. I brought in a couple dump truck loads of dirt to build that up, and then I think it's crushed concrete. I have like a couple loads of crushed concrete and the labor that's associated with that, and then the cost to set the building, and there's going to be a cost associated with moving the building. All that work gets redone, and then somebody comes and puts the building back, along with new sod, with drainage, with driveway relocation. That's why I'm saying I think it's around 10, but I'm just shooting from the hip.
Okay.
It could be less, it could be more. I'm not qualified.
Okay.
It's not a cement driveway. It's a crushed concrete. The driveway is crushed concrete. It's not cement. Cement, it would probably cost a lot more.
Any other questions for the applicant while he's up here?
Not a question.
And then I'm going to bring up Lee next. So no questions for Mr. Ronan. All right, thank you. Lee, if you can come on up.
Lee?
I'm sure you heard the discussion. We wanted to get your input on the scenario.
I wouldn't want to give you an estimate if that's what you're looking for.
No.
But my involvement in this was merely to come to the site and suggest another location. And I think Mr. Ronan talked about that. And the location that I thought would have been probably the, if the goal was to move it away from the front of the house, then I think the best location for it would have been 5 feet away from the fence on the south side. And it was between two very large oak trees. I think they're oak trees, but between two large trees. It would have required a bit of a relocation of the driveway. But again, it's not a concrete or paver driveway, it's a crushed concrete driveway. So I don't think the expense of that would have been all that great. But, you know, I was ready to go back to my office and write up a report, do a little sketch. And I think that the next day I got a copy of a site plan that showed it in the location near the front corner of the property. So I just assumed that Mr. Ronan was not interested in moving it to the back. So I was just there for a professional opinion, okay? I did suggest, however, that if that front location was the only location that would be suitable for Mr. Ronan, that he screen it with landscaping so that it's not, I don't like to use the word eyesore, but that it's not disagreeable to the neighbors and people who drive up and down there to see a shed. That would be a minimal expense. The location that he shows here is 25 feet from the property line and 5 feet from the sideline. And there is a relocated driveway there associated with it. And I assume that would be crushed concrete as well, wouldn't paved or anything like that. To move it to that location, I can't imagine in my wildest dreams that it would cost $10,000. I think maybe half of that would be closer to the truth. Now, yes, you'd have to do a little bit of moving the fill that he put in there prior to that and getting that site prepared, but I can't imagine it would be $10,000 that expensive. That's my opinion, anyway. I haven't done any estimates or calculations or anything, but I know when these people deliver these sheds, they back a truck up and they just pull it off the truck. I mean, these things, they're big and they are bulky and so forth, but you can move the things around quite easily without bringing in heavy equipment and things like that. So I don't think moving it back to that position is that big of a deal.
Lee, if you can you speak to, with the existing and the proposed location, what is the actual distance the shed is moving?
I believe it's 5 feet.
20 feet.
Because it was 20 before, wasn't it?
Moving it 20 feet. Because he's 5 feet from his fence line now. He's going to 25 feet from his fence line.
Oh, I'm talking about from the front.
He's moving it 20 feet to the east, closer to the water.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just for the record, just so everyone knows, this is a 20-foot move.
So the original location was 5 feet from the property line?
Right.
Oh, that I didn't know.
That was the problem with the surveys.
Exactly.
The front line, the front property line was cut off the survey when the copy was made.
Ah, I see. Okay.
I have a question.
So do we have any questions for Lee?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Was there not a recommendation, it may not have been yours, and you can say that, to place it on the north side of the property?
Actually, when I talked with Mr. Ronan, we discussed not on the north side, and my recollection might be a little foggy here, but it was in fact in the middle of the property.
Well, that was
behind some trees. Behind some trees.
If you're going to make me move it, that's where I'm going to put it. Responses. I thought that you, or maybe it was Larry, I don't know, had suggested that it go 5 feet from the north property line as opposed to 5 feet from the south property line.
No, that wasn't.
I'm sure I saw that somewhere. Drew, do you remember that at all?
Vaguely, so I'm racking my memory, but I think it came from Larry that night. I think Larry might have proposed alternative locations that he was just kind of spitballing that night, and he hadn't spent a lot of time looking at. But I think that was a Larry statement.
Because there is another alternative.
Okay. Any other questions for Lee?
Yeah, just one last question for Lee. If they were to move that to their correct setbacks, they wouldn't be required to put screening around it, would they?
Required? No.
Okay.
No. That was just a suggestion.
I just want to make sure everybody understands.
Lee made it pretty clear in his communications that he was making recommendations beyond what he could say you must do. I'm misquoting you, but that's what you said.
Yeah, these were just recommendations. That's all I was asked to do, to go out there.
I just want to make sure everybody was clear that wasn't a requirement.
Sure.
Any other questions for Lee? All right, thank you, Lee.
Yes, sir.
Okay, discussion on the overall project.
I think we really need to figure out what we think the city's liable for. Liable or not liable for.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's where we need to go.
Based on what?
And this survey or site plan that they submitted for their permit application, if you look down in the lower left corner, you see that circle, and that's the radius lines that would indicate that was the front of the property. So I feel that the city has some liability by having missed that, because that's pretty obvious with that radius on there. That's where the front line would have been. And if you do this in scale, that's nowhere near 30 feet back from that line. So I'm just one, but I think the city might be liable for half the cost of moving it, but I don't think it should include anything that would have to be done in a new location, because if it were put there to start with, that expense would have been there anyway. So If the city had said no, and then you have to put it there and reconfigure your driveway, then that would have been an expense he had anyway. So that's where I'm at.
Mr. Spradley?
As I think about it again, and just a little more history comes to mind, when this was presented to the Park Board, I think one of the first things Mr. Torino said was, we have a problem, that we created a problem, that the city created a problem because of what happened when it was initially permitted. And that sort of characterized how the presentation went, and I believe that led directly to voting to approve the variance. Unfortunately, we weren't attentive to the factors that we should have been attentive to in retrospect. When the Ronins came before this board later, Mr. Torino suggested that he came into some new facts, that maybe the city wasn't as at fault because of a change or a survey supplied by the Ronins that they should have known better, or some words to that effect is what he said. So that's what I mean. So the history is sort of foggy, and but when all is said and done, I can tell you what my view is. My view is that to me, it doesn't sound like there's enough of a change in circumstances to revisit the variance issue. However, there was direction given by this board to staff to work with them to get a solution and to pay costs, and I don't think we can back off from that at this point, and I hope that's not what I'm hearing. I do like what Lee had to say. I'm hoping that he's closer to what those costs would be than what Mr. Ronan would be, because it's half. My view is not to revisit the variance issue, I think, but also to work forward and try to get this resolved. And perhaps Drew's suggestion of a max cost of contribution by the city may be the way to go. And that's my thought, especially since we're talking maybe closer to $5,000 to $10,000. It would have been nice if we had an estimate, but if that's what we're talking about, some portion of $5,000, it just seems like something that needs to get resolved, especially since the view, no matter how you look at history here, the city has some liability in here somewhere.
Okay, any other, Commissioner Sherman?
I was going to agree with Commissioner Spradley. I think the city does have some responsibility there, and I'd be okay putting a cap on a certain amount once we get some numbers in and things and such, and give it back to the city with that type of direction. I guess I just go back to the fact that it was permitted and approved by the city to put it in that location. So I think that burden does fall back on us.
Okay.
And I would agree that we have to pay something because for all the reasons you said, and I'm not going to be voting, but I feel very uncomfortable with putting a cap on an unknown number. We're going to be requiring the Ronins to come with 2 estimates. Can we not wait until they bring those 2 and then we see real numbers? And then are we willing to pay for this, and this, or not?
Well, that's the issue. The issue is, are we paying for moving the shed, plus changing the driveway, plus, bringing in fill, plus sod? I just don't think we're liable for those other things that it's put in a spot it would have been if we had denied it initially.
And I don't disagree with
that's my thought there.
I'm just, looking at it
and I know staff and the Ronins would prefer to get this out of the way, so I'm kind of...
Sure they would.
I'm kind of...
And code enforcement.
Okay.
Because we're taking a can over in code enforcement.
And I'm along with Commissioner Spradley on trying to put this to bed as quickly as we can and put a best guesstimate on it and be done with it.
To answer, Commissioner, yeah, absolutely, you could push it back and wait until you had quotes back. But my thinking when I was proposing the not to exceed number was you can also, should they come back and say, look, our quotes are above the not to exceed number, we're stuck again. that can also come back to you. So if there is that maximum number the city is willing tonight to talk about, you could do that tonight so that everybody can move. And then if they do come back with a number, if they come back with those quotes and they're above that number, then we'll come back before you and say what.
And I'm not saying he will do this, because I don't want to come across as I hate these people. I don't even know them. If we say $5,000 not to exceed, what's to stop him from going to two contractors and say, I've got $5,000? It makes me I can't spend money that way.
Okay, so we are at a point, so do we want to continue forward and come up with a number that we're okay with, or do we want to wait until we have further data and then make a decision?
I would recommend it not to exceed $2,000. It can't cost more than that to move a shed.
Thoughts on that?
Is there any time sensitivity?
Well, Attorney Smith indicated that code enforcement does want to.
We bumped it until July, or August, so the magistrate gave us a table, or continued it until August, so there's time there, so.
Could we have it, do you think we have enough time between now and the next meeting we have this month could it be presented to us again with numbers? Because I'm having a little bit of difficulty quantifying a number to approve without actually seeing data. And so, or, it's kind of like you're shooting in the dark.
I think that's completely understandable. From code enforcement standpoint, yes, I think if we were to hear this the end of June, that still gives plenty of time for us to be well on the road towards resolution by the time we get to that August hearing date. If they can get quotes that quickly, that's my, just with, maybe with this, there's not going to be a huge time delay in getting contractor person out there, but just it's whenever, whether it's code enforcement, any meeting where we talk about we have to get a contractor out to the site to look at something and give us a quote, we, just like Ben was talking about, we never know how much that's going to cost, how much time that's going to take right now because of the, the crunch on contractors and services. But as long as that's enough time for them to get quotes back and come before you, and we're really talking about a week, we can get it on the agenda, but you still need it for the backup. So there's not a ton of time.
Well, let's do this. Mr. Rowan, if you could come on up. You feel you can get 2 estimates by the next meeting?
When's the next meeting?
2 weeks from today.
June 22nd.
I can try. I mean, I'm at the whim of contractor availability. Everybody knows what that's like, but I can certainly try. Is there any, I don't know if anybody has any recommendations for.
Our next effort is July 8th.
I only have ones not to use.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have a couple contractors on the street. I don't know if they'd be willing to make an exception and, hurry that along, but I just wanted to see if that was something you felt that you might be able to wrap up. I mean, worst case scenario, just go to the next meeting, the one after that.
And we've done it twice. We can always ask the magistrate for more time if we have to, but we have been kicking that can now a couple of times now, and I'd like to not have to, for everybody involved, not have to keep kicking it so we can all, sleep and know there's a resolution to it. If you do go the quote routes, again, for the Ronan's benefit and the city's, I'm assuming you want detailed quotes that actually price it out, not project total.
That was going to be my suggestion.
So worth a shot?
Sure.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Ronan while he's up here? Okay, thank you for that.
Thanks.
Okay.
Is it possible to talk about?
We'll have public comment. Yep.
You want me to send the quotes to me, Drew, just bring them in?
Quotes go to Penny?
Fine with me. I don't mind.
Quotes will go to Penny.
If I get them, let's go send them to Penny.
Okay, so as a body, are we okay with waiting on the quotes to do further action?
I am.
Absolutely.
Okay, and before we wrap this up with a motion, let's open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda? And if you can, come on up, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Marvin Howell. I live at 1560 Lambert Avenue, and I'm a retired contractor. I was a contractor in this area for 30 years, and I could probably clarify some of the issues that you were talking about as far as shed placement. I drew 3 alternate plot plans for that, and that's probably one of the ones you saw in the north. I'd be happy to present those to you.
Maybe you can give it to Penny. Give it to Absolutely. Penny. And that way she'll enter it into the record.
And as far as cost moving this shed, I understand it's a hardship on the Ronins, and I know there were some issues with permitting that should never have happened. I've gone through all this before, and of course, I understand that the city should never be responsible for someone's lower lot and drainage issues. The lots in Lambert Avenue all have similar situations in torrential rains and flooding conditions. We all have flooding in our yards. There is a much less expensive way to move this shed. Instead of a slab and fill under the slab. We use them all the time in construction, sonotubes. They're just concrete. They're just cardboard tubing. You set them, you shoot them with a laser, and you fill them up to a certain height with concrete. The building just sits right on top of it. And then all you have to do is fill in with gravel or compacted or ground concrete for the entrance of that shed. Water can flow under the shed without any damage as long as the elevation is set right. So we're not talking about building a new pad. We're just talking about setting 4 piers or 6 piers depending on the span of this shed. So there are less expensive ways to move this shed than building a pad. It can be sitting on sonotubes that are poured in concrete. It's very inexpensive. So I just, wanted to put that out there. I know the Ronins have kicked this can down the road for a long time. I'm the one that got 60 signatures on people who do not want to see that shed any closer than 25 feet from the road, and I definitely do not want it. I've worked for 30 years building homes on lots that are smaller than his front yard and made everything work and stayed within regulations. So I just wanted to put that out there, that there are definitely less expensive ways to move this shed than bringing in fill and doing a whole project type situation. It's really just moving the shed. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Marva.
Denise Strite, 1839 Oak Place, and I can assure you, if this gets settled this way, because we've been hammering and hammering and hammering, and every time, as a matter of fact, I've made 3 trips this month alone to the building department, and McFadden, I know, takes the complaint and throws it right in the round file, and I get ignored. Marlene and I have been on the phone. If you want to go down Oak Place, we have shed violations. We have, it's starting to look like an industrial park. And so everyone wants to jump on that. I can assure you, Oak Place is going to be piling on because we're going to want our problem fixed and not ignored either any longer. For what was allowed at the permitting that shouldn't have been. And I have the emails.
You got to talk in the mic.
I have the emails and I have the letters from Downey and from Torino and from McFadden saying that we're going to no longer allow ingress and egress on Oak Place, and we're having ingress and egress on Oak Place, and it causes flooding on Oak Place, and the setbacks aren't right, and I have a metallic building that looks like it belongs in an office park, and that is our frontage road. It is our street. And I can assure you, whatever is on Oak Place, you would not allow it. The city would not allow it on Central. You couldn't put that nonsense and that mess that these people have. And now we've got jet skis and some kind of recovery van and a metallic garage that someone's working on cars out of. It's a mess. And it gets ignored and ignored and ignored to where Marlene's going, I don't know what to do. You come down here and I talk to you and I listen, I get it, I understand. And I hand it up to my superior who is McFadden, and I don't know what he does with it from there. I know what he does with it from there, and it goes nowhere. It goes nowhere. So I'm just saying, you can look forward to the people of Oak Place, because we're going to get this ball rolling again, piling on to this nonsense, because you can come fix us too.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the public who wish to speak on this agenda item?
Can I say one more thing, please?
Is that okay?
Yep, well, we'll close public comment.
Public comment,
Yep.
it's public.
And come on up. We'll hear from the applicant.
All these lots on Lambert Ave are not the same. Mr. Howell,
Yes, sir.
did you drive by?
You got to address me.
Okay.
Yep.
I suspect Mr. Howell drove by my house to get here today. What I'd like to understand from Mr. Howell, right now, we had 1 hour, maybe 2 hours, I don't know, rain yesterday. It's been pretty dry until then. I suspect if I go look at Mr. Howell's yard, it does not look like mine. I would bet every penny I have in the bank that Mr. Howell's yard does not look like mine. Most of the yards on my street do not look like mine, which is an extenuating circumstance. This person is telling falsities. It's not true. It's not accurate. It's a 5-minute drive. Anybody can go look at it right now. His yard does not look like my yard.
Okay, thank you.
Does not.
All right, so close public comment. Well, we've already closed public comment, yeah. All right, so we have further discussion, or I will look for a motion.
Motion to what?
Well, before we opened up public comment, we were talking about waiting on estimates.
Direction to staff?
Yeah, and so if the direction is, let's give the Ronins time to come back with those quotes, then I don't need to do that in a formal motion. I think they've heard that, and so then we'll
do a
wait to get
consensus.
those in.
I've recorded a consensus on that already.
Okay.
I saw a head bobbing.
Well, let's
She's calling us
let's not have a consensus until after public comment. So do we have a
Or
consensus?
actually, if you wanted to make a motion, you can make a motion to table. Yeah, that'd actually be the most appropriate
Yeah,
motion.
right. I would think that's a lot better.
Motion to table.
I'll second that motion.
You have a motion and a second, all in favor?
You need time.
It's not a notice thing, so that actually just tabling it open-ended, what that allows us to do is when we have those quotes in, then we can get it on an appropriate agenda. So I actually prefer not a date certain on this one.
All right, we have a motion and a second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimous.
4-0.
Oh, and
one no vote.
Commissioner Mealy not voting. All right, item 15 was pulled, and we'll move on to item 16, which is discussion and direction of staff regarding Florida DOT request to change Lambert Avenue designation to a minor collector road. And that is CRA Director, hiding behind the door.
Darn it. Eric, you didn't address my concern on what's going to happen.
It had nothing to do
Well,
with the agenda.
I don't know if there was, what was there to respond to?
Now, what is the city going to do about Oak Place? Mr. Belgimmer's aware
But
of
we
it.
were,
Mr. Sherman's
what we were
aware
doing
of it.
about Oak Place wasn't the agenda item.
You just always respond to public comment to give some sort of move forward and resolution, some sort of something on it, and you didn't respond to what I said.
She should have come on the public comment.
Right, but I'll entertain this. City Manager, we have some reported code violations down on Oak Place.
There is a number of issues that we've had on Oak Place. There is not any specific code violations of which I'm aware of. There is construction on rerouting water lines, which have been finished. There is issues that have been finalized as far as water line replacements, hydrant replacements. Those are done. There is not a specific code violation that has been reported that I'm aware of. So I'd have to review what we have. I'm not always familiar with exact which codes has been cited. I can report back to you at the next meeting if you so choose.
Let's treat that public comment as a code violation report, because it basically is. All right, and so can we look into those concerns, though?
Yes, I can find out if there's code violations on Oak Place.
Correct.
And then report that back.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to kind of bring you up to speed what Mrs. Streit is referencing. I spent about 3 hours out there last summer with Mr. Streit discussing this same issue, and our previous city manager, I sent a long email out to him, and unfortunately, I don't think anything really went anywhere with that. for those of you that aren't familiar with Oak Place, it's a very tight location, and for those residents that do live on that street, that back up to the west, that are on the west side of that street, it is very difficult for them to navigate. And I don't know, I don't want to start pulling code. I think it is a code enforcement matter.
It is something we need to look at.
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely something we need to look at, and it was something that should have been addressed last summer. And I'll leave it at that.
Everybody's comfortable with consensus on looking at potential issues there?
Yeah, I just wish we would stick to the regular order of business.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question on number 15 before we move on to Karen. Can I bring this up now under commission comments, since it's not an item to be addressed? Number 15.
I don't know what you say. Can you bring 15 up in commission comments?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Francione, Director.
Hello. Hi. If you recall, at the last meeting, I just updated you with FDOT's decision to reclassify some of the roads within District 5, and one of them turned out to be Lambert Avenue, which is a local road right now, classified as a local road, and they wanted to classify it as a minor collector. The reason for that they apparently, I received an email from the county explaining their position as to why they were against it. And according to that email, apparently FDOT told them that if it was a local road, that FEMA would not pick up debris. And the county feels that FEMA collects debris regardless of whether it's a local road or not. So they just felt it needs to remain as a local road. However, what they did not address is the other potential benefits to the people that live on Lambert and to the city. As you know, as a member of the TCC, I'm also part of the scoring of those grants that are applied for. So now I know exactly what to look for. And a local road gets absolutely no points. So no matter if we wanted to do sidewalks, or if we wanted to do, stormwater, or repave Lambert and try to apply for a grant, because it's a local road, we get no points. If it's a minor collector, we get points. You score higher. So that's the benefit, as far as I'm concerned. Not only that, but we should be able to get, regardless of whether it's a minor collector or not, reimbursement from FEMA. I don't know. I don't know if we received reimbursement from FEMA from this past 2 hurricanes for that or not, but it's my understanding that from DOT standpoint, FEMA will not pay for debris removal from local streets. So I don't know. My recommendation to FDOT, to FDOT was, as, a staffer on the TCC, I told them, I said, I believe that the city would rather have it as a minor collector road, but I have to bring it to the commission and let them decide, and I will let you know as soon as they tell me which way they want to go.
So just a clarification on her statement about FEMA reimbursement. FEMA doesn't reimburse for private roads. A local city municipal street is not a private road. It is a city street. So.
I thought we got...
Yeah, that's what I thought too, but I'm just saying.
Right. I do have a question. There are 11 properties, I believe is the number, that are in the county on Lambert Avenue. And I don't know if it came from you or somebody else, that the county was not in favor of this.
The county just felt that it should remain a local road regardless. But in the email from the county, they explained that it's ultimately up to us because it's in our jurisdiction.
They won't stop it.
They won't stop it.
Okay. Thank you.
I thought that I saw something on the county agenda Monday that they approved us. It was on their consent agenda. May be wrong. but I don't think they're,
I'm not aware of that, but
so
I couldn't answer that.
I have no issues with the change of
Oh, it's only for
designation.
the better.
All right, any questions for CRA Director while she's up here? All right, thank you, Karen.
Thanks.
Well, we have to give her direction.
Yep.
Move forward.
Well, we're getting way ahead. Discussion up here. Thoughts on this?
I'm in agreement for it. It goes with the TPO that we discussed and the potential of putting a sidewalk on Lambert Avenue.
I'm in agreement.
And any other projects that could be funded by the TPO?
Exactly.
Mr. Spradley?
I mean, is there any downside to that conversion?
None that I know of. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have spoken. I apologize.
Oh, you answered the question. All right, no other discussion? We'll open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? Karen, you can sit down. You're good.
Okay.
All right, so we'll close public comment. Look for a motion.
Well, can
Unless we have further
I
discussion.
vote on this one?
It doesn't have any financial impact on your property, so I don't see why you need to declare a voting conflict.
I'll make
Just
a motion
wanted to
that we
make sure.
approve, that we give direction to staff that we're in approval of the redesignation of Lambert Avenue by the TPO.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. All right, item 17, discussion regarding river to sea transportation planning organization request for assistance with Florida DOT request to lower speed limit on State Road 100 between South Flagler Avenue and Roberts Road. City Manager, are you going to take that?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Chief Downey's on vacation, so I'm going to present what his conclusions were with respect to the reducing the speed limits on the bridge on the 100. Basically, Chief Downey looked at what is the traffic patterns and the design specifications of the bridge, and he contacted DOT to find out from DOT what DOT believed would be the effect if we lowered the speed limit, as was suggested at the last meeting, from 45 down to 25. So DOT, you have a reaction from them, an analysis. You have an analysis from Chief Downey. In essence, they do not believe a reduction in the speed limit would be it would in fact be a safety hazard. If you allowed low-speed vehicles to go on the bridge with a reduced speed limit of 25, the design specifications of the bridge is really set for a higher speed, and vehicles that come across the bridge, even though you may have a speed reduction by law, the speed would be dictated by the design specifications of the bridge, and that's at a higher level. So if you lower it, you unfortunately probably have people on the bridge that would still travel in accordance with the design specifications, and you would be setting up a safety hazard and probably end up with increased accidents with the low-speed vehicles. So Chief Downey recommends strongly that you consider reversing the recommendation to lower the speed limit on the bridge and bring it back to the DOT speed limit specifications that is already set. So Chief Downey is asking is you reconsider your motion and maintain the current speed limits on the bridge on 100.
All right, discussion.
Did we actually move to change it, or did we move to look into it?
I
think we moved to look into it.
We put together a letter asking for it.
I never heard back from Colleen so
You never did.
I never got a response. So
Well, no, I'm interested at our last meeting, Penny.
You gave consensus to Commissioner Sherman to communicate with the TPO director with the city's desire to look into this, and could she assist with FDOT assist
But we
with that,
didn't
with getting it
direct that the
accomplished.
speed limit be lowered.
No, not
So there's nothing to
specific.
reconsider. Where I'm trying to get to.
Well, I think what Chief is asking you to reconsider is the exploration of it. I think what Chief is saying is that his wisdom is to not even explore it.
He doesn't want us to
That
keep
if
moving forward.
If you were to come back, hey, this is a great idea, Chief would disagree with that great idea.
Yeah,
think
no,
that's what's
I
being
understand that.
communicated to you.
Okay.
It's apparently a cold case now.
Commissioner Spradley was first to put his hand up.
When this came up, actually, Mr. Cunningham brought it up. It's the context of the conversation was on relieving pressure on parking, is how it came up. And so I remember thinking at the time, that's a great idea, because it seemed that it would have the potential for relieving pressure on parking. But it didn't take me very long. In fact, when I left the meeting and crossed the bridge to go to Publix, I realized that, wait a minute, you know, if we lower the speed limit, that's great, but I have a strong suspicion that the vehicles are not going to slow down, is my concern. Especially coming east, trying to beat the light like I do all the time. And so I didn't say I exceeded the speed, but I think there's life to the concern about the safety issue of it. And I have since, over the last 2 weeks, I've thought about, you know, I've seen cars zipping around and thought about what would it be like if someone crested the hill and sees basically a souped-up golf cart right in front of them, going 20 miles an hour slower. So I think the chief's concerns are valid. Thank you.
Commissioner Mealy?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with any of that. I just thought that by FDOT saying no and the chief saying no, that we're kind of done with it. So for the chief to say we should reconsider, I didn't know what we were reconsidering. Because we never said that it had to happen. We were just going to look into it. So that's the only point I had.
If I could address that, we believe that because of the direction that the commission asked us to pursue, that we ought to close the loop and bring it back to you so that you knew what chiefs and DOT's consideration was, so that you could close the issue of whether or not there would be a request for speed reduction on SR 100 at the bridge. Okay. So it's just allowing you to close the loop.
Other thoughts or comments?
You want a motion to close the loop? If so, I'll make that motion.
Well, we published
Yeah,
on
we
it.
need to hear from the public. Do we have any other discussion? No?
I would just like to add, I'd like to still come up with a solution to help alleviate our parking congestion areas. And thank you, Bob Cunningham, for thinking out of the box of something that none of us had thought of yet. And originally, yes, I think it's a great idea. Part of me still thinks it is, because we have a bigger problem going on in the city, but way to go.
We can start up a ferry for golf carts.
All right, let's open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item?
Oh,
Since I started it, I'll just go ahead and talk a little too. Bob Cunningham, 557 North 10th Street. The idea, that's what I provide, an idea, a thought. It doesn't mean it has to happen. If it can happen safely, then I would love to see it happen. If DOT and the chief say it can't be done presently safely, that's fine. If DOT comes back and says, hey, they have to re-engineer something, put another lane in, any number of things, I'd like to see it happen eventually, but it's going to take some engineering. The engineers are the ones that have to make it a safe way to do. So at this point in time, what the recommendation is it's not safe. We shouldn't do it for now. That's all. Thanks.
Okay. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? And seeing no one, we'll close public comment.
I'll make a motion that based on the response from FDOT and the response from Chief Downey, that we not pursue this any further, lowering the speed limit on the bridge.
Second motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimous. Item 18, approve payment of $18,489.92 to Flagler County for reimbursement of expenses incurred by the county to secure final easements for the Army Corps project. And Penny, that one's showing you.
Yes, sir. So apparently I didn't capture, I recall it being discussed, the city offering this East of A1A fund money that's been sitting in our coffers for years.
I thought we already did this.
You did, that's what she's telling you.
Yeah, you did. I failed to capture it in the minutes.
Okay.
So I'll cut to the chase if you don't mind, so just make it
Thanks.
easy. So for audit purposes, Penny wants a clean record that you authorize it, so that when the auditors come in and say, why did you write this check? Because they told us to, can be the answer.
All right, so discussion on us telling them to. Again.
I'll make that motion.
Well, so open up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Rick had a motion.
I'll second.
You have 2 seconds.
Approve the payment of $18,489.92 to Flagler County.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. All right, we'll move on to staff reports. Drew.
I have 2 items. The first one, last meeting we talked about the A-frame sandwich signs popping up more and more, and the city receiving more complaints or just more, maybe you guys noticing more of them. And I did take a look at the code like we talked about, and I have a proposal that I wanted to run by you to see if it's something that you would want to do to the code, a fairly simple fix, because the issue, I don't think, if I understood the comments that were made, it's not so much that people who are complying with the code are causing a problem. It's that people are starting to push the boundary, and those signs are going into the right of way where they're not supposed to be. So my thought in what the language to put in there is actually to have express language that if those sandwich signs are in a location where they're not supposed to be, and code enforcement sees it, code enforcement's going to pick it up, put it in the back of the truck, bring it down here in City Hall, and you notify you can come pick up your sign, and just fix the problem through creating a little bit of inconvenience, is my thought.
Well, same way we treat the other signs.
Isn't that
Yeah, that's how
process
real
now?
estate signs have always been
It
taken
is.
care of.
But there's a little bit different, my approach here is a little bit different than that. The reason we do that on real estate signs, when they're in the right-of-way, snipe signs, real estate signs, snipe signs, anything that's easy to pick up if it's in the right-of-way, not because it's part of the regulation, but because it's on our property. So what I'm saying for these, if it's in the right-of-way, I think you could already do that. Yes, you don't need that language in there, but if it's somewhere else, that it's on the private property, and it's not supposed to be in the location that is, or they have 2 of them up, so there's just that creep, but it's still not on our property where we're acting as landowner to deal with it. If it was on the private property, let's say you had private property with 2 A-frame signs, you're only supposed to have 1. Well, we're picking one of them up, but in the back of the truck. You can come and get it.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a consensus on that?
Are we limiting that to just sandwich signs?
Are there other, I would be,
I've seen signs on wheelbarrows. I've seen.
see, the thing with A-frame signs and why that was my thought, it's easy to pick up and put in the back of the truck. The sturdier signs, that's causing a bigger problem for code enforcement to get it loaded up, one, and to find space or over it. I guess at building departments where they would wind up to store them. I guess building department, they probably have more room. But so I was drawing it on, this is an easy fix for easy signs to pick up. If it's a harder sign to pick up, that could be more complicated. But we could leave it a little bit. I've drafted the language for A-frame signs, but I could open it up a little bit so that we may pick it up. And that way, if John's out and about and sees it, and it's easy getting in the back of the truck, and there it goes in the back of the truck.
Portable signs.
Portable signs is, what I'm addressing, and there's just different degrees of portable is what I'm trying to say. And I'm thinking about a code enforcement officer who's in a truck by himself, and we don't want him lifting a ton of weight and throwing his back out or something like that. And that's kind of, but yeah, I can leave it open.
In that
and
case,
let him make his best judgment.
they just lay the sign down, or they have in the past. Okay.
possible too. But
My
so
major-
if you're happy with that idea to fix it, I'll bring that back to you. I drafted a little bit late, but I'll bring that back to you at the next meeting. And would you like to see that on first reading or just a discussion draft?
Consensus on first reading?
Before we even get to that, weren't we going to address the number of signs on properties?
That came up in the conversation, but I did not hear direction to change anything there. The 321,
Yeah.
No, we already did that.
that was when it came up in the conversation, was I was talking about, do you want me to look at A-frame signs? Eric said, well, didn't we already do that? I said, do what? And then it came up that you had recently addressed the number of signs, but I did not hear that as.
Because one of
look at
my
that.
favorite shops now has yet another sign.
How many do they have?
One in every window,
Well, is that
one in the parking lot, one
you're
across the top, and now one across the back.
So you're saying there's probably a code issue there.
Could be. I haven't looked at that.
Hearing-
That's what we said last meeting. It was a code
Hearing what
issue.
you're saying, that sounds like that's an issue for John to take a look at, because that sounds like too many signs.
Yeah, we already have a rule on how many signs.
That's what I mean. When I say too many signs, I don't mean too many signs practically. I mean too many signs. I think that's more signs than your code allows.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we still need a consensus.
I just
for
don't
city
know
attorney.
that what Drew's proposing is going to change what I was complaining about. My complaint was them putting those signs in the right of way. So it's not that they
But
had
that's
too
already
many
been
of them necessarily, it was because they were putting them in the wrong place.
Well, if they're in the wrong place, they're going to get picked up and then they'll know better.
Well, if they're in the right of way, then we have every right to pick them up and car them off, as far as I know.
Keeping the right of way safe. That's why we do that. Because we don't want somebody tripping over one that's in the right of way where we're the ones
I
that get
don't
sued
know
over
if
it.
we need to go through that just.
So then I can put a pin in what I'm working on, and I can get with John, and we can work out a strategy for if he sees them in the right of way, you know, and because John does a really good job of doing PowerPoints and sending me the PowerPoints. So I get a lot of information from John. So I'll get with him and we'll work together and see and let him start addressing it that way and see if that brings some improvement to the situation you were talking about. Does that sound like a plan? And then I won't kill what I'm working on. I'll just stop it and hold it and see if we can get the resolution the same way we'll
I
deal
don't
with
see
that.
any harm in continuing forward with adding that verbiage. If anything, it's just going to help our case.
I'm happy either way.
Yeah, and it would actually help us along to what would be a potential step 2 anyways. What we're doing is just getting ahead of it.
Yeah, I think Karen wanted to say something.
Come on up, CRA Director.
Thank you. I would like to request that we really look at the sign ordinance very carefully. It is very confusing, especially for the CRA. All it says in the CRA and in our regulations is follow the sign ordinance. The signs are getting out of hand, but we really don't have a leg to stand on in a lot of ways. Yes, the one that you're talking about is a code enforcement issue, but the way that they have the signs, even if they take down that back sign, all the signs that are on the windows and stuff like that, there's nothing we can do about it. So I really would like to request that you, as the commission, maybe direct Drew to start looking at that, and I will be happy to work with Drew on that because it really is becoming a problem.
I think that's a bigger discussion.
Okay, well, I'm just wanted to bring it up.
I mean, I can talk with Karen and we can kind of look through it, and then I can, again, same as here, bring back ideas or bring back any issues I see.
Yeah, if Karen-
Or if I have that conversation sometimes, just as I do with you guys, and I do with Karen sometimes too, say, well, let's find a strategy, maybe even work with what we have. But I can have that conversation with Karen if you guys are willing to let me and Karen work on that.
I'll take anything that's gray and turn it into black and white.
I do my best.
So are we okay with Drew?
Sign code's always hard for that because we've got so many considerations with sign code because it's First Amendment.
It always, yeah. I remember Virginia sitting there, First Amendment, First Amendment.
All right, so are we okay with giving consensus to city attorney to look at both of those subjects?
And to work with the CRA director.
So what I'll do is I may slow down the other, and I'll get with Karen and I'll look at that, and if there's other things that I think are fairly easy fixes that we can do short term, I'll add them to what I have for this one. And so it might not be next meeting, so that might push us back a meeting or two, but I'll try to, that way it can make it easiest for you and the public to, you know, to have one issue that you're dealing with, and it's all about signs.
Sitting down here, okay with that consensus, Cheryl? Y'all are quiet, okay. All right.
So my other one, and we are still technically in the settlement negotiation process on the golf course, although the mediation seems to have led to at least something to consider. On the 12th of this month, by the 12th of this month, we will know whether or not the mediated settlement agreement that came out of that we put together has been approved by the other side, at which point then I will be able to formally schedule a shade or a meeting with the shade meeting so that we can come in, have discussion in the shade, and if there's action to be taken, obviously we do that in the public. But until I have that sign off from them, I'm not going to formally schedule one, but I do want to take the opportunity and request a date from you. And I talked to Penny, and your meeting schedule I know is very tight. I'm trying to be as respectful as possible to that. So the time that I've come up with is 4 o'clock at our next meeting. You have CRA starting at 4:30. So we're compressed. We'll do our best to see if we can't get it all done as close to 30 minutes as we can. Worst case scenario, we need more time, in which case we'll table it and continue it on to a later date. But if we get that signed agreement back, I don't want us to sit any longer than we have to. For multiple reasons, I want to move as quickly as we can.
It's a day we're busy already.
It's a day you're here already, yes ma'am. It's just, my concern is that if there's a lot of questions, we might get time compressed, but I'd rather go ahead and have a date ready to go so that I can move if we get that approval from the other side.
So that's the 22nd?
Yes, ma'am.
At 4?
How do y'all feel about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
And the other reason why I needed to bring that up tonight and why I'm doing it as a contingent basis is because, as you know, for a shade meeting, I have to tell you I need one before you can schedule one. So I'm telling you, if they approve the settlement agreement, I'm going to need a shade meeting. And we will take care of getting the court reporter and all that stuff. You don't have to worry about any of that. And then we'll go from there. Okay, that was it for me.
All right, thank you. City manager.
The city manager search process concludes this Friday, tomorrow. And following that, the screening will begin, the background investigation will begin, and the Basinger company is on track with the original schedule that they presented to you. So the interviews will be mid-July and will fit in with the budget process, which Penny will present to you as far as the proposed dates that we have for potential budget workshops. So be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for city manager? That's all your comments?
That's it. Short today.
Wow.
That's all you've done for the last 2 weeks?
All right.
I've got some other things I'll work on. Yeah, I'll get it like now. Yeah.
Penny, your comments are up. Like now.
You're up.
Like now.
Sorry. I have a couple of things to go over with you. The first one is the dune walkover project, update for that. And I did forward on to you an email today where I'd spoken with the contractor, and I had forwarded you an email earlier this week. One of the issues was a turtle decided to create a nest on the beach ingress and egress. And the federal law requires they stay 10 feet away from that. So they're no longer able to go down and work from the beach like they were before. So they did get a crane. It was delivered today. So they will be working with the crane to continue work. Still waiting on the MOT so I can get a FDOT permit because we'll probably need some lane closure northbound on the south end of town in certain areas where the dune isn't wide enough to have the crane and traffic have ingress and egress by there.
Penny, before you move off that, people will complain about the fact that we tell people to stay off the dunes, but here's this big crane on the dune. Is there, I'm not being critical, I just am anticipating. Can we post it somewhere that this is happening and why it's happening?
Sure.
Thank you.
You can lead them into water. You can't make them drink it. We will.
I agree.
If we have the lane closure, I don't know how, I haven't seen the crane to know how long the arm is, or if they'll be able to maybe work from the road and reach over. I'm not sure. There, you know, the dune in some areas it's very narrow and some it's wider. So they'll do the best they can to observe our desire to keep the dunes not trampled or drove upon, but I am sure there will be instances where that will happen.
Well, you can just do a PSA and, you know, we've had bulldozers on the north side of town all over the dune for, what is that, a month or two now? They're just running all over it. That's just what they do.
Right. So, yes, we could.
What's the location of the turtle? I mean, of the tortoise that they stay away from? What street is that?
The turtle's no longer there. It's laid its eggs and went on. So the
what
nest.
location was it? Do you know?
I do.
You can just answer it, then we gotta move on.
It
I don't want,
is at
this
the-
can't be a back and forth like this.
I just wanted to know.
There's only one ingress and egress down on the beach, and it's there at the red light, to my knowledge, at 100.
Oh, that one, okay.
Is there another? I know of no other.
I don't know, yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the public one.
The one where the big rope goes across? and-
Yes.
Okay.
At least it wasn't that 1,000-pound one that they showed. I think it was in Miami. This ginormous tortoise came up on the beach.
Not sure. I did write Lindsay back, and she was talking about because I had mentioned to her, well, can you work on other areas? And a lot of the other areas that don't need pilings are fabrication of metal for handrails and other things like that. They said they would do the best they can, but they have to go out and measure certain things for that. We're also still waiting on the architect to deliver sealed drawings for the switchback design walkovers, the 4 of those. Construction Co. cannot do any work with that until those 4 particular are permitted from DEP and FWC. They did waive the permits for the other ones in an emergency order that they extended, but those 4, because of the new footprint, will have to go. So that's my update on that, and I'll also be sending over that information over to Katie to include in the weekly report so the public can access it. Do you have any questions about it? No?
No, thank you for the email, Jane. That's really helpful.
So the next thing I have on here is, remember last year, we had the mayor sign a letter to send out to the businesses and residents whose lights were in violation for turtle nesting season. We have that list again, and we have a letter prepared for the mayor's signature. It was the same type of study, but it was a different company that performed it for FDOT, so we amended the letter for that in the dates, but it's basically the same. And I'm just seeking approval to have the mayor sign this letter, and we'll get it out to those businesses and residents.
Discussion or consensus?
Just, yeah, go for it.
What do we need to do?
We're okay with Penny having the mayor sign the letter?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's that. And then, oh, hold on, sorry. Yeah, I do have the Florida League of City Conference. They have opened up registration for that, and I did send you all emails asking who planned on attending and dates if they were staying over or driving back and forth, so I could get, the hotel fills up quickly. At the event rate. So, and I can get it for a much lower rate than what I'd pay after those rooms fill up. I have received a response from Rick and Jane and actually registered both of them today. So I would just like to know at this point, if you can't tell me tonight, I understand that. If you could let me know tomorrow if you plan on attending and what days.
Anybody have information from Penny on that? I will not be.
I'll get with you tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, same, I plan to go.
But you'll get me dates?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you, I was reading this, sorry. Can you say again?
We're wondering who's going to the League of Cities.
Oh, I won't
Bill,
be going.
no? Okay. All right. And James, you'll get with me tomorrow as well. Okay. All right, that was that. And then, I feel like I had another note. Sorry. The dates, we're seeking approval for dates for our budget workshop. And Rhonda, if you want to take that, I'm sorry, since I bullied her into getting it.
Thankfully, I found it. My stack of budget papers is like this high. So after Mike and I sat down and looking at the calendar with everything that's all going on, and in order for me to meet trim guidelines, we're looking to schedule the workshops either Wednesday, July 19th with a potential rollover to the 20th, or Thursday, July 20th with potential rollover to the 21st.
Either one works for me. See what everybody else.
Same, I'm good, both dates.
Third, fourth.
19th. It's, since nobody has a preference.
July 19th.
And roll over to the 20th.
I prefer no rollover.
I'm with
Yeah, like that's going to happen.
So does the
Oh, no,
city
we're going to be
manager.
optimistic. Mike, I've been cheering Mike on with this
I will
one.
do my absolute best to
Mike
ensure
and
that
I
we're
have
in one day.
Going to tell us to shut up?
Limited discussion.
So will we vote on the 19th?
If everybody's okay with it. That'd be the Wednesday?
Yeah, we all
Yes,
said
sir.
we were.
So Drew, just for clarification here, I would still have to draft to meet posting requirements, draft 2 agendas, one for each day, and if they're finished on the first
Correct,
day,
you
they
just-
can cancel it.
Correct, you cancel the second.
Okay, thank you. Just so you know ahead of time when you get 2. We're not forcing that idea on you.
Much.
9 a.m., usually they are 9 a.m.
Well, I would propose to avoid rolling over.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I mean, that's where I'm at on
I would agree.
So 8 a.m.
Seriously?
it. If it keeps us from going into a second day.
Taking another day off work. I
Yeah,
agree.
For those that it's more convenient for, I'll go along with that.
It's up to
Okay,
y'all.
Dave?
I'll sleep over the night before.
Sorry,
You
Jay.
put it, we'll set you up
Yeah.
an air mattress right there.
So 8 a.m. on the 19th with potential to roll over on.
Gives us an extra hour of buffer
And we will have breakfast and lunch for you as well.
and dinner.
I'm not doing
Pancakes.
dinner.
I'll order pizza.
That was all I had. Thank you.
All right. Did you have anything?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Lee, do you have anything? CRA Director, do you have anything? Okay, so we have commission comments. Mayor.
I had nothing until Penny brought something up which reminded me. The ingress and egress, the ramp that's at State Road 100. I noticed over Memorial Day weekend, that was used as a beach access point by people walking from Finn's, just hordes of people going down. Always in the past, there has been a rope there with the sign that says no public entry, and I was just going to say, could we put that back up?
I was going to say, that's why they're using it.
Yes.
It's wide open. There's
Right.
no one's putting the rope up.
Yep. So that was it.
Does the rope still?
It's still there. I already looked at it. Someone just has to move it from point A to point B.
That's a typical lifeguard responsibility when they have movement of equipment, ATVs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Turtle Patrol lifeguards tend to do that, but it appears that no one's putting it back.
We'll check.
That's all you have, Mayor?
All I have.
Good job on the beach cleanup.
Thank you.
So I'm going to bring up an article that was published in Flagler Live the other day that I'm pretty not happy with right now. I think there was.
But I know which one it was.
Yes.
I know which one it was too.
And I think
had
there
that
were.
slated
So
to talk about under my comments.
I'll just go ahead and put myself out there on the record, Mr. Chairman, for this. I'm pretty disgusted, to be honest with you, the way that was addressed. I've expressed my displeasure to Mike about this as well. Not one time did anybody up here say we were going to ask for money. Not one time. Okay, that's number one. My second point would be the fact that I won't call any names out, but someone that represents this town didn't stand up and say, you know what, I need to talk to my elected body here. I'll leave it at that. And the third point is that it's a quality of life thing. What did we ask for? We just want to have a discussion. Bring your points. What can, we can come together collectively. We selected, I think, 2 great people to represent us. I think the mayor did a fantastic job writing a letter. I think there were some things misquoted, misunderstood. I just hope that we can have some effective conversations here as, an elected, with our representation on the 20th and the others that are going to come to that meeting. I was really let down in the fact that I think instantaneously it was just defense mode. We're already doing these things. Well, we're not asking for that. We're asking to have some honest conversations here about what can be done to, alleviate what's coming our way, plan effectively for the future for the county and finding maybe other points and different things. But I just wanted to bring that up and get that out there, that I was relatively let down in the manner in which that was brought up at the county commission meeting, and I was also told that I guess Palm Coast now is only going to bring 1 representative. I think
They were looking, I spoke at the mayor's meeting, and they had 1 selected, and they were looking at another one already. Ann Bonnell was very excited to come. Actually, all the cities were very open to it, and they agreed with it and brought lots of support. So when I read the article, I was taken off guard because that wasn't the reaction that I had a couple days earlier.
Well, while you're on it, and I'm going to be
He's posted a follow-up.
I'm going to be addressing it further under my comments, but if you look at the true intent of what it was that we were talking about, it's actually to eliminate the financial finger pointing. This is to get ahead of that so it doesn't evolve into what it's evolving into. Because if you get ahead of these things and you figure out where to get the people to the right spots, then you're not going to have municipalities going, it's on them and it's their people and it's this and that, and you need to give us money, because it eliminates that. And it's actually quite the opposite intent of what got started. But I think, I talked to city manager, and we have some suggestions on cleaning that up a little bit that I'll be bringing up.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
And part of my reaction was, when was the last time they were at the beach to see what it is we're talking about? Does our representative drive from, and I know he's been ill, but does he drive from Grand Haven to the county building and back again, never to cross over the bridge? Facts always get in the way of stuff, but...
Can't agree more.
It actually demonstrates that the letter didn't get read. Because if you read the letter that was sent, then it would not have spurred that particular discussion.
I would agree with that entirely.
Right. All right, so Commissioner Bellinger.
Yeah, I got a couple things here. Last commission meeting, I mentioned something about the intersection at Moody and Flagler, and the danger to pedestrians at that street corner, and it got taken care of before noon the next day. That was just,
8:30 in the morning, Rick, I texted him, it was getting done.
it was done before noon, so.
Way to go, city manager and
Impressed.
staff.
Majority, all the cones have been removed. Heck, there were 5 of them in this park and a couple more in another down south, and all up and down A1A. So the majority of those have been moved, so appreciate that getting done. One thing I've been complaining about, and I remember before another commissioner saying something about the stop sign. Commissioner Phillips said something about the stop sign at South 20th Street on Daytona, but you couldn't see it until you were right on top of it. So I went down there with my trailer and my saw and I started cutting things down, got that cleared out of the way. But I would hope that at some point the city do a better job at keeping these sight lines open for people to move around town safely. The new stop sign at South 13th on Daytona, if you're heading south, you can't see it until you're 100 feet away from it. If you're going 30 miles an hour, it's too late. So that needs to be cut back so
I didn't have any
so
trouble.
that can be seen.
I didn't have any trouble seeing it.
I remember back when the trailer was given to us for the emergency, equipment and stuff, that it was going to be put away somewhere. And
Talking about the rotary trailer?
Right, the rotary trailer. It's still sitting out in the sun, getting bleached and in the salt air. It will certainly last a lot longer if it's sheltered like they proposed it would be.
I thought it was supposed to sit at the building department and also be used as a billboard for the Rotary. That was where it was.
I was told it was going to be put in the building behind the fire department.
Okay.
Well, city manager, did you have any thoughts on that, or have you been in the loop on that particular piece of equipment?
Yes, I've been in the loop on that, but I do not know where we were going to locate it. I'll follow up on your comments. I think it does need to be put under some secure, because the sun will bleach the signage off. So,
Well, and the salt air will just rot out the bottom of that thing.
yeah, and so I think we probably do need to find a location to make sure it's secure.
Thank you.
Sir, I haven't seen anybody out working on the bridge lights lately, so I don't know if they're totally done or whether they're down to the last few and still have a few left. Do you have any information on that at this point? Are they done or not?
I thought they were done, but I'll check and make sure.
It seems as though there's a couple more on the south side of Moody.
I thought they were
through
done.
here that weren't done.
I'll check
I don't
and
know
make
if
sure that they're all complete.
Okay. Otherwise, good job. It looks a lot different going over that bridge and seeing all the lights the same color. When they, up on Roberts Road, when they were putting in the water main for the new apartments, they dug up the right-of-way and the driveway apron to go into the public shopping center. And it was just put in there with soft fill. And there's huge potholes there that shouldn't be. And residents shouldn't have to be driving through potholes to get in there. It's our right-of-way. So
I thought they weren't finished.
Well, it's been at least 3 weeks since they dug that, so hundreds of cars going in and out of that driveway every day. So people shouldn't have to be driving through potholes. So hopefully somebody can get the contractors to come back and pack that a little better. Our decorative signs have all been replaced, put back. We actually have one of them that's lit, which is around the corner on Moody.
Yeah.
That's right. the northeast corner of the Veterans Park.
What do you mean decorative signs?
Decorative light, did I say signs?
Okay, but you're talking about the decorative lighting?
Right.
Okay, got it. Now
Yeah,
follow.
you did say signs, but
Did I? I meant to say lights. Sorry. All right, and that's it for this round.
Commissioner Mealy.
okay. I'd like to thank the staff that helped put together the Memorial Day and a couple of staff that participated in the event. I was kind of disappointed with the American Legion. They kind of weren't following directions very well. The guy that I had been working with was very particular. I need to know this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. He was driving Tom Gillen crazy. And then they just kind of did whatever they were going to do whenever. So, lesson learned.
Taps came quite unexpectedly.
Taps in the middle of the poem that I was reading, yeah, that was really good. Those of you who are going to the conference, don't forget to sign up for the League of City Policy Committee that you said back on the Signed Eye Day that you were going to be part of. James, you already said you did not get a response from DOT. It was an excellent letter.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Really
no, I
good.
haven't gotten any response yet.
And in relation to, or did you want to say something?
Yeah, you mentioned League of Cities. It just made me think. We have ethics coming up, due date, right? Isn't that
You
due
have to
in
take
July?
it once a year.
It's not a set date?
You have to do 4 hours a year, and what you do is you have to certify on your Form 1 that is due the end of this month that you've taken your 4 hours for the
Okay,
year.
got it. I had that.
But you're right, there is a date associated with it, and that's your Form 1 date, that's when you would say you've done it, is on your Form 1, which is due July.
Okay, that's what I had.
Right, so whenever you took it last year was probably after July 1. So that would work for this form. Then next year, you're going to have to do a Form 6, so I don't know, is that on there too?
I hadn't even thought about that. I was wondering, did they remember to make that update to make sure that they put that language on the Form 6, since now you'll be disclosing it, I assume, on Form 6 next year?
I don't know. I can't wait to see Form 6.
Jane, you've been on the League of Cities site recently enough to know whether they have one of those online sessions
video
scheduled?
They do.
Yeah, as far as I know, they do. I'm going to take it that Wednesday morning.
You can't take it at the conference if you go on the Wednesday. So Wednesday's the early day. Most of the events on Wednesday are associated with the League of Mayors, and the commission portion really starts on Thursday. So
now that I think about it, I told you I would go on Wednesday.
You did.
And that meeting's at 8 o'clock in the morning. Did you send it in already? I know you registered me.
Just register you for the
Yeah,
event.
you didn't.
Not book your hotel yet.
Okay, let me, before you do the hotel.
That would be an expensive ethics class that you could take online for free.
Free, yeah.
Well, they're all for free. Anyway.
I prefer doing it online, actually.
Yeah, well, that one would include a
I
hotel.
kind of
then.
like the give and take, but are we done with that?
Getting you all distracted.
I am. All right, last month, Drew brought up Senate Bill 170, I think it was, about that every ordinance we're going to pass is going to have a business impact statement. And I said in the last meeting I sat through on the League online on Zoom, one of those GoToWebinar, they suggested that we talk with the local business community. I realize I only have Johnny's email from the restaurant, which I did not want to use, but I did have Scott's private one. Also, Johnny was in Michigan or someplace. Scott said he thought it was a great idea, and whenever they have the next meeting, I can certainly talk. And so I said, just let me know when the next meeting is. And I'm still waiting to hear back on that. So, but he seemed to like the idea. So I will let you know if and when that happens. All right, this thing we were going to do with Palm Coast, Bunnell, and the school board about AV chargers. That went away. Kind of left me with the same feeling as what I read on Flagler Live. But it is something we're going to need, our AV chargers, whether we do it with Palm Coast, Bunnell, and the school board, or we do it on our own. At some point, we're going to need EV chargers. This would have been great to put them, you know, in the places that were described here, except I wanted one on the other side of the bridge too. Don't forget, we have another side of the bridge. So anyway, just something that we shouldn't let this go away. Is this a grant we can apply for ourselves, or?
We're too small, and we tried to mobilize other, you know, the school board and Bunnell, and we just, in the county, and evidently, we just don't have the size to do it ourselves, so we have to have somebody. And it, I don't know if you've read the Palm Coast, my understanding is that, you know, they may reconsider at some future point, but until we can get some partners, we just are not big enough.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't want
As far as having it on both sides of the bridge and all that, the people that live here that have electric cars will go home and plug them in.
But you need special plugs. You can't just use your plug you have now in your garage.
Of course, everybody rigs up something at their own home so that they can charge it at home.
All right, but now, in this memo, it said the second benefit of the grant is Flagler Beach is vulnerable to climate events, including flooding and hurricanes that necessitate evacuation. Okay, well, that's true. The people on this side of the bridge need to get over the bridge. But the people on the other side of the bridge are already on the other side of the bridge. Does that mean they don't need EV chargers? You know, I didn't like that, but anyway. We sometimes forget there's people that live over there, and there's more and more, you know.
Hey, I just spoke up for people on the other side of the bridge.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Did they welcome you? Anyway, getting silly. That's it.
Commissioner Spradlin.
Thank you. I've had 2 Saturday meetings at my office for any residents who want to come in to talk about Flagler Beach issues. The top issues continue to be the same. Progress or perceived lack of it on dune walkover construction. So any information that's coming out is awesome. I keep pointing to it, but as we know, there is a, you know, there are some that there's no possibility of getting enough information.
No, and if it's still the residents around South 17th Street, I had a gentleman come in the other day and asked me for an update. I gave it to him. He said, "Is that all you're going to say?" And I said, "Do you want me to make something up?" I'm telling you what I know. I'm sorry, it's not what you want to hear.
Well, it's definitely, there's more information now than there was a month ago. And I can tell there is a greater number of people that are satisfied by that. So that's good. And of course, stormwater issues is always a topic. And no one comes to see me to talk about something having to do with the city issue without mentioning stormwater. Oh, by the way, there's that. And so, but I think it's good. I do find that people like to be heard. You know, it's just a different forum to do that. So I'm happy to provide that service, especially because every now and then one of them or other will hire me to do something else. So that's, Drew mentioned the golf course mediation. Nothing can be said other than there hasn't been an impasse, so that's always good. So hopefully there'll be good news on that. There were 2 new lifeguard stands recently acquired by the city. A large piece of one of them now lays on the beach at South 23rd Street. A couple of them were scooped away. I think it was Saturday night, whenever it was the peak night of we had the storm come through. And so I saw it this morning. I didn't have a chance to tell Tom, but it's a large piece of it is down there. But apparently, even though they moved the lifeguard stands back a good bit, it wasn't enough. You know, the high tide, full moon, king tide all happened, I think, Saturday night.
Well, I'll be the one to say it. They were not moved back far enough. I had multiple people reach out to me, and I made contact with some staff and let them know that these towers are going to wash away. And
apparently one did.
Yeah, the 2 or 3 ones. Yeah.
I was sent pictures by multiple citizens where they were halfway down the beach and the tide's starting to wash in, and the citizens called it out, and they're like, these are not going to make it. So that was disappointing.
Well, there's a problem that needs to be solved there, not just in moving them, but moving them where, because once you get to all the way to the back of the dune, they're going to have to be moved elsewhere into somebody's right of way. So something to look at. And then finally, on what I'll call the intergovernmental quality of life meeting coming up in a week or so. Personally, I have viewed that meeting from the couple times we've talked about it here as an opportunity for everyone to be heard about what are our expectations at Flagler Beach. And so I view it as the first series of meetings as planning, hearing what people have to say and to plan what we need to meet the pressures on the beach that are no doubt going to come to benefit all of our governmental partners. And then there will come a time where you got to figure out how to appropriate and pay for these things. But yeah, on the front end, I agree. And I think in all likelihood, we're all on the same page, which is that this is the plan to figure out what's important to all the other of our governmental partners, and then begin to develop a plan. I mean, everyone is experiencing growth in new residents and tourists, and they all wind up going to the beach, as we know. And then that leads us to the last thing I'm going to say, which is that we talk about parking indirectly here and there, and sometimes more directly. But, with groundbreaking on the hotel about to begin, and all the trucks and all the inventory of equipment and all of that coming, soon to be followed by the pier, I don't think we can give it enough attention, and because it's going to be a long-lasting issue until it's resolved. And, I'm somewhat reluctant to start adding yet another big topic because we got so many, but that one there it's going to be realized by everybody every day. So just a thought. Thanks.
All right. First thing, thank you, Mayor, for another beach cleanup. And I do want to say that, and I think it needs said, that the Flagler Beach All-Stars, and I can only speak for one member of the Flagler Beach All-Stars, but there is I think there are some people who are starting to question, are the beach cleanups worth it? And I'll tell you why. No locals other than the All-Stars participate in the beach cleanups. Now, on the plus side of that is thank you to the Palm Coast Pinell unincorporated residents that come to the beach cleanups. It's very appreciated and beneficial, but I know that there are some members of the All-Stars that are questioning, is it worth continuing if not one local participates? If Flagler Beach residents don't care about participating in beach cleanups, is it worth continuing doing? and is a good use of their time. So I need to kind of put that out there as either a call to action for, residents, or as just, to let folks know that here is where things are at. I think there's a segment of the community that perhaps might just consider it as a convenience that just happens every month. But it's not. It's volunteers that are taking time out of their weekend, which is, for most people at work, is only 2 days long, and to do something good. And if there's not enough participation, that probably is going to end. So I just wanted to put that out there, or perhaps another group might be able to take it over or something.
What time do they start? 9 o'clock?
Yep.
All right, well, I was there too early.
I was going to say, Rick, when you've been there,
I was
you've been
there-
there before 9.
I was there at 8 o'clock, and I picked up a lot of cigarette butts.
Yeah, and there's a lot of residents that they just pick up every day on their own.
I was just going to say that, on the other side of the coin is the people who every day, several times a day, are out there cleaning up.
Yeah, but it's so as a formal process, I think the All-Stars are probably going to need to get more participation, or potentially that would be at risk. But I don't know that to be a fact. I'm just kind of putting that out as that's a sentiment that I'm picking up on. All right, so this meeting with the multi-municipality meeting, I want to start with a potential solution, and City Manager, interject whenever you want on this one. But the way that we kind of originally talked about it, and we didn't formally say we want this to be basically like a strategic meeting, where it's a strategic planning session on, we have a potential issue, and inside this issue is a couple other sub-issues, but we can't talk about solutions unless we have the bodies at the table. And these are solutions that are years out. These are not anything that are going to affect somebody's budget next fall. These are not anything that's probably going to affect their next budget in any way, shape, or form. It's a matter of identifying the freight train coming down the track of the 30 to 50,000 people we're going to have in the next 3 to 5 years, additional in the county. And how do all those people, because we can assume that a very high percentage of those people are coming here for beach access. And if there's a bottleneck here because we are geographically landlocked into a tiny little segment that's thin, and it's mostly parking on just one street, which would be A1A, and you physically can't fit the amount of people that are coming down this track that are on this freight train, how can we as all municipalities solve this issue? And it's really more of a strategic planning based meeting. And nowhere in the discussion in strategic planning do you get so far ahead where you're like, all right, we need this much from each of you for this municipality. And not only that, but there's all this finger pointing going on about parking, and they say, well, you have the beach and you guys should pay for parking. But the thing is even, let's say hypothetically, Flagler Beach takes on the bulk of the parking responsibility. Even if we did that with the amount of people that are being approved in the subdivisions and everything, we still can't physically fit those people here. We don't have the carrying capacity. Let's say we build a grand parking garage in some area of land that we don't even have. We still can't fit the people. There is a huge swath of beach access that needs to be properly utilized, and not this little tiny spot here. And that requires buy-in from all of these folks. And so I kind of wanted to just pitch to this body, if y'all were comfortable with this being basically not agendaed, but kind of to ease some of the stress points that these folks are having about this meeting, and saying, look, this is more forward-looking. This is 5 years down the road, strategic style planning that we can't have without y'all at the table. Are you guys kind of okay with that rough kind of concept?
I know I was being a little snarky before, but I seriously would invite people from the other people you're meeting with, come to Flagler Beach and look at what's going on. Look what the impact of all those new homes you're building, all the new stores you're putting in. Look at the impact to us. Come see. And I'm serious about that because I don't think they come here.
Oh, no, they don't.
So, are we making all this up? Of course we're not. So I would start with something like that.
Yeah, and we're not going to get into splitting hairs over who pays for what, because this is as our city manager originally started the discussion, this is a quality of life issue. The residents that move to Flagler County have an expectation of being able to access the beach. They cannot rely on getting through just us to get there. And that is the crutch of the problem is we are physically bottlenecked. Everybody's being funneled into a little tiny point, and it's just a matter of what is the right thing to do in ensuring that the next 30 to 50,000 people that are coming here in the next few years are able to do that. Because, and also keep in mind, if this is in fact a real 5-year discussion, is it realistic to expect that the east side of A1A is actually even going to be able to be parked on and utilized as a parking area? So you're talking about potentially, and I'm not saying this is a government initiative, it might not be there. You might not have all of that parking, which is the majority of our parking as a city to access a beach. So there are things that all need to be part of this strategic discussion that involves the other municipalities, because Palm Coast has no beach access for the residents, and they have the majority of residents. And I know that their leadership wants to have beach access for the residents. And it's just a matter of how can we collectively all put this together. But, are you all okay with this being strategically geared meeting? And
yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Versus you guys cost us this much and we're putting our hand up, which was never the intent.
Well, had they read the letter, they would have known that.
Right. And that I actually, I sent the journalist who wrote the article, I sent him a screenshot and I cropped it of the letter where it said, we are looking for your suggestions on quality of life issues we're facing. We wanted it to be a collaborative thing. We don't want to drag all the municipalities in to just hear Flagler Beach's concerns. We want to hear their concerns as well. And we would like everybody to participate in, here's what we see as future quality of life issues in our municipality that will also affect you. For instance, Palm Coast might be having concerns about water. Like, for instance, later in these discussions, eventually we're going to end up fighting over well fields. And that's also something that's going to need to come up. That's not going to be in this meeting, but as a multi-jurisdiction municipality-style meeting, those are the type of things that is the intent of what this is what are we looking at 5 years from now? And I know darn well municipalities are going to be fighting over limited well fields, because you keep building, unless you plan on piping in water from 20 miles out from Mondex, we've got to have these discussions with our neighbors. So hopefully that makes sense.
It makes tremendous sense. And I just want to add one thing that I just became aware of. But since the time that this meeting began at 5:30, there's a new article on the topic.
Well, give us.
Well, I don't know what's in there.
I will tell you that the title. The title is No, Flagler Beach isn't asking for money. It's asking for cooperation from counties and cities. I'm sorry.
I wanted to add, did we send an invitation, and I'm not sure if this is something that we wanted to do, to also to TDC to see if they wanted to,
well,
or stick with just municipalities at this point?
This does affect visitors. I don't, it might be a little early to bring them in.
I just didn't want to miss the vote.
Although I don't know, did we reach out to Marineland? I don't know if we included them in this.
No, we did not.
20 of them?
It's 11.
Oh, it's 11.
I think as a formality, I think it would be a good practice, but I just wouldn't want to exclude anyone who is in county. at least give them the invitation. They can decide whether they want to take it or not.
It was discussed at the mayor's meeting, and the mayor of Marineland also has the minutes to that meeting.
Okay. So I wanted to get that on the table. I really want and hopefully the journalist that's making these articles is listening. I really want the leaders of these municipalities that are coming to this meeting to have the proper idea of what this is. This is not, we're asking you for money and we're demanding it and we have a rationale because we think you're doing something negative to our city, because that's not what this is. This is, we collectively, as a county, it's a very real issue. We got to figure out how do we get the next 150,000 population we're going to have in a couple of years to the beach.
Smart growth.
Right. And if you look at all of these PUDs, complexes, subdivisions that are being approved, almost all of them have coastal names. So it's nobody can say that the majority of people that are coming here for farming.
Well, just the name Palm Coast.
Mm-hmm. So,
okay.
While I'm on record, I do want to say this. There was mention at one of the meetings that was in the press, and I read it and it bothered me, but there's a particular group that is taking the approach of good cop, bad cop with representatives to this meeting. And I would like to tell them directly that if there are any elected officials that plan on attending this meeting to play bad cop, that they just stay home. That's not what this meeting is about.
Oh, the meeting.
The meeting that's upcoming. That is not the intent. It would undermine everything we're trying to do. And if you
I had not intended to come until I read that.
Oh, okay. But there was folks that openly were talking about playing good cop, bad cop, and I would just tell them don't bother, because that goes against everything we're trying to do. This meeting, if it's done properly, eliminates the finger pointing with finances. And it eliminates the blame game among all these municipalities, because then we're collectively working towards the solution of the problem.
Well, I was hoping we'd see the representation of our district there, the meeting for Flagler Beach.
He just wanted to.
Well, city manager, did you have anything on that?
The only thing I would question, does the commission desire to send a letter of clarification as far as the intent back to the jurisdictions so that your statements that you made tonight in your direction would be clearly understood, that would reinforce the letter the mayor sent out previously?
Maybe you could just resend the letter.
Well, I don't think that had what it needed the first time. I mean, are you suggesting that you just push out communication, or are you talking about a letter from the mayor?
A letter from the mayor, a letter from the commission in some form that would stipulate what your real intent is with this meeting and
can't hurt.
Can't hurt, exactly.
I agree. I mean, starting from the threshold of, it's been reported A, B, and C, just for clarification.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's what this is about.
We could have staff potentially, but how do we get that letter approved and sent, or do we just okay with it?
Trust in our staff.
All right, consensus on that?
Yes.
Maybe use some highlights.
Okay, but that's all I had. Hopefully, for what it's worth, that clears up some of it.
Good job.
It was long-winded. All right, that's all I got. And we'll open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on anything? Robbie, you just showed up. What do you got?
Man, I calmed down on the way down here, so I'll tell you privately one day during the week, I'm sure.
All right, anybody? All right, so we'll close public comment and we'll look for motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
You're adjourned.
If you want to know how to ruin it, let me go build the thing, obviously, see if they can meters.
I had a store down there, it was horrible.
So I want to tell you that I didn't mean to miss your question.
Drew, have a good rest of the night.